Right, good evening everybody, welcome along to Scrutiny and Improvement Committee here for the 7th of Feb. Another action-packed evening this evening. We have 14 assignments in scope. Now because of a couple of reasons we won't be actually working through all of those, but it's quite action-packed. Good evening, Councillor. So, the first thing we need to do is to sign the minutes of the previous meeting, which, as Councillor Frenchman and I were reflecting on, the was quite some time ago already. We're talking back in November. So if your memory is a bit shaky on the S&I scoping documents in scope, then it's no wonder, because we haven't met for so long. I'll raise that again a bit later on in the meeting, actually. Anybody have any comments about the minutes of the meeting dated 8th of November? Are you happy to accept those as current record? No dissenters? Very good. Thank you. I'll sign those then. Thank you, Wendy. The next item on the agenda is the apologies for absence. Now, we do have 2 apologies for absence for this evening for 2 of our members. The first one is from Councillor Adam Brown. He's actually got ward business which he needs to be attending this evening urgently, and it's very appropriate for him to be there, and he says otherwise he would be here, and he sends apologies. The other apology is Councillor Robertson, as you all know from your correspondence, had some very sad news about his wife, so wish his family our respects and this challenging time. So he won't be in the same from his reasons. Our thoughts with him. The next item on the agenda is the declaration of members' interests. Don't expect we have any of those this evening, but let us know in due course, if not now. And the agenda item number 4, it looks like we're swimming through at this point actually, but it gets trickier later. While we're nice and fresh, we'd like to invite Chris Warman, is it?
That's right, yes.
Warman. If you remember a couple of meetings ago, as these often is, we agreed as a team to invite Chris in to speak to us about the Green Flag Awards. And it's one of those things that often appear on our S&I items on the corporate plan. And obviously there's been documents circulated about what it is, what the benefit is and how it's assessed, etc. But nothing like having somebody in real life to speak to us about it. You'll notice on this agenda item we have a maximum of 45 minutes to talk about it. It may well be a topic you want to know much more about, but we need to be disciplined to get through the agenda. And also Chris has been very generous with his time, and he also needs to get off afterwards. And so does Councillor Guildford, who also needs to go as well afterwards for a parish council meeting. Parish council, which is chair. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Chris. Thank you for coming. Please feel free to introduce yourself and take it from there. You have the floor.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chairman. Thanks for inviting me. I'm Chris Warman. By day, I'm the Parks and Grounds Manager across at Rugby. I manage all the parks, all the green spaces, the trees, etc. across in Rugby, and also heavily involved with the crematorium, which obviously is a joint project with yourselves across there. In all my spare time for the past 20 years, I've also been consumed by the Green Flag Award. I was there on day 1 when it started 20 years ago. It's actually its 21st year now. So I've got a great breadth of experience of Green Flag, being there at the very beginning. To which end, last year in the Queen's Birthday Honours list, she was kind enough to give me the 3 letters after my name, of which I actually go to Buckingham Palace on Friday to collect.
Yes. Congratulations. That was noted actually.
So it's quite interesting that my wife did a calculation on how much time I spend on Green Flag. I won't bore you with those details, but I think I spend more time with Green Flag than my wife in all my spare time.
Benefits sometimes.
So I have a wealth of knowledge, including, and I can't quite remember the year, possibly 1999, was the judge that actually gave Daventry Country Park its first green flag. I can't remember, it's 1998. It wasn't the first year, like the second or third year of the scheme when Daventry got its green flag. And I gave it its green flag back in those days. And I have been back a couple of times since as well, I hasten to add. I don't now come to Daventry because the closest we work with in terms of crematorium, so
yes.
So I do declare interest there. Can people see that okay?
Yeah, we can always
look at the slides, not me really. That obviously is Daventry Country Park. Taken a couple of years ago by my good self when I was there. As it is a Green Flag Award quality green space and has been for a number of years. I can't remember, this was possibly in 2005, somewhere there when this was taken. So you may think some things have changed there slightly now, but that's Daventry. Just a bit of background about the scheme, if you don't know. It was launched back in 1996, and yes, I was there, I am that old, with the first Green Flag Awards being issued in 97. At that particular point, it was literally just England where the awards were given. By 2002, it expanded to Wales, and what's called the Green Flag Community Award was introduced. And that's basically for community groups that maintain their own green spaces, not where there is a managing body like a local government or a trust involved. By 2010, the award was delivered across all of the UK regions and introduced into the Netherlands as it started a path in becoming an international standard for the Green Flag. And in 2011 and 2012, the award expanded across into Germany, New Zealand, Australia, and started to be introduced across into universities for their green spaces and campuses and housing estates. And those areas are still growing hugely in terms of the Green Flag. 2015 saw the first Green Flag canal. You'll see a picture of that later on. And also in 2015, the first awards went across to the Middle East, to the United Arab Emirates and to the Republic of Ireland. And last year, which was our 20th anniversary year, our first awards went into Finland, NHS Hospital down in Bournemouth for its grounds and linking with the healthy agenda down there, and the Blue Water Shopping Centre, also for its grounds. So all of a sudden, Green Flag is becoming quite a bit of an animal. But it's a management partnership. It is owned by the DCLG down in central government. They actually bought the scheme back in the late 90s and have operated it ever since. Back in those days, it was the office of the Deputy Prime Minister. All those transformations down in Whitehall, it's currently within the Department for Communities and Local Government.
Chris, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
Take the UAE example, for instance.
Yes.
How would that work in practice then? So, do you have like an assessor from the UK going out to do that?
You're looking at him.
Oh, really? Good. Wow.
And I've been out in the Middle East quite a lot, assessing their parks against exactly the same criteria, which I'm about to talk you through as
That's
well.
incredible, thank you.
And there's some pictures at the end just demonstrate some of the green spaces that are around the world.
Yeah. And of course, that place in the UAE, I guess, I don't know if it's like Dubai or somewhere, Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi
doesn't really strike you as being that green, I guess, because the water scarcity.
Correct. But you may be surprised later on.
Okay, good.
It's a huge growth area this year in terms of the Green Flag. The licence is operated by Keep Britain Tidy. You all know the Keep Britain Tidy logo. In terms of its litter campaign, it also does Blue Flag beaches and also does Green Flag awards. And its partner organisations around the UK, because whilst Keep Britain Tidy is a well-known brand and well-known name, the reality is it's only England, because of us, we've got devolved administration these days. So we have Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful, Keep Wales Tidy, Keep Scotland Beautiful. They're the regional bits of that. Antasca is the Irish National Trust in the Republic of Ireland, and we all work also close with the National Housing Federation and the Federation of City Farms and Community Gardens in terms of the community awards, and they really focus on the community aspect of them. So I know you want to talk about the judging process, what a judge looks for. Like I said, I've been judging for 21 years now, so I was actually in Richmond 2 weeks ago doing my 21st year's judging stuff. So it's just a case of talking you through literally what the judge looks for and what you are being judged against. The way parks are judged, there's a full assessment where you'll find a judge, or in most cases 2 judges that attend the site. They will look at all the site management plans that you have, all the documentation, so we can judge on what the purpose of the site is, basically. Within your documentation, what are you trying to achieve on that site? And it's an accompanied visit. So we'll have staff from the park, friends groups, community groups walking around with us, and you get a very detailed feedback in terms of how it is.
So to answer, so the accompanied by park staff, it's an arranged visit.
So it's an arranged visit,
announced, etc. You organise it in advance.
And that happens every other year. In between that, you get what's called a mystery shopper visit, and that is really what it says on the tin. It is independent. There is no reference to the paperwork. It is very much appearing on the site like a member of the public and walking around. Scoring the same criteria, but as an independent member of the public. And again, you get a feedback report from that visit as well. And it's really a way of managing to make sure that the quality is being maintained. There's sometimes some criticism about an announced visit or a full judging visit, very similar to the written in bloom, where you're doing that for that day only. The mystery shopper visit actually counteracts those sort of claims, and most of the judges are from within the industry. That's the wide green space industry, and there's always 2 of them, so you can normally tell when things are being done on purpose for a judge. Several authorities become unwrapped very easily on judging visits when they try to say, oh, it's been like that for ages, but you can tell it's still fresh paint and things like that. So on a proper visit, we score a criteria. We score all the desk work and desk assessment. That makes up 30% of the score, and the on-site makes up 70% of the score. And the pass mark has to be 66%. Anything below that is a fail. However, Green Flag is there to support the green space industry, so even if you fail, you still get a detailed report and the reasoning behind that. With some people, to be fair, do put their parks in knowing they'll fail, because for a Green Flag assessment, it's about 315 quid. You get a detailed report from an industry professional. If you went to a consultant for that, they'll be charging that per hour. So actually, within the industry, it's actually quite a good rate in return in terms of getting some detailed feedback.
And Chris, on those assessments, you have basically 100 checkpoints, do you?
It's all broken down mathematically.
Yeah.
There's about 27 sub-criteria.
Right.
And there's a mathematical score to do it. We use a scoring line. Sorry.
66% seems very low.
It is the minimum quality. There's the minimum standard for green
It
space.
still seems low.
Yeah.
I would expect a green flag to be much higher than that, even at the lowest level.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how many people struggle to reach 66.
To get 66, right.
Yeah. No, I know the score of Daventry because I looked up when I came here. I happen to be privileged enough to find the back office system. I know Daventry is scoring above 66 by quite a degree. So.
I suppose if you have it too high, it might be a bit of a disincentive, but if it's too low, then it doesn't have any...
It's not about excellent parks, it's about the minimum standard for public parks. DCLG, obviously there has been a select inquiry in public parks, results of which are published on Saturday in London. We believe Green Flag will feature quite heavily in that in terms of how people can judge the quality of their green space.
Sorry, can I just check something there?
Yeah, go for it.
Did you say it's not about excellence?
It's not about excellent, it's about the minimum quality that parks should be achieving. So the pass mark is 7 out of 10 basically as you go through that. So each criteria, if you're hitting just about 7, then you're hitting a quality mark for parks. Having said that, I've been on parks scoring 2 and 3s, a lot of criteria. Daventry is relatively lucky in terms of the country park that you have, because it is of a well-managed quality.
Chris, should somebody be foolish enough to ask you for an assessment when they were down the kind of 2 level, what would be the obvious signs you would find when you turned up to do the assessment?
It's going to be neglect, it's going to be graffiti, litter, dog fouling, dangerous stuff. I've been on sites where it's actually been physically dangerous, and I've rang up their help desk saying, you need to get somebody out here now. The response being, I'm a call centre in Doncaster, I've no idea what you're talking about.
Gosh, yeah. So they're not going to get the green flag.
So there are examples that I have physically seen, burnt out cars in car parks, burnt out tyres across parks.
That is not a green flag.
That is not a green flag park.
Gosh, you couldn't even believe. Some of those cases you don't even need like an unannounced assessment. You actually find out when you've been scheduled to come and do.
Correct. I did a scheduled visit to one. I won't say where it was, and we were stepping around Muck around the site.
Yeah.
Quite a shabby, burnt out building on the site, covered in policemen. And I said, can I just stop this assessment? There's something not right here. What is it? And someone was murdered there the day before.
Oh, okay. Gosh.
And you could just tell. You can tell.
Yeah.
Was it the park ranger?
They hadn't got a park ranger. Anyway, which is why I say this is the minimum standard that green flag is, because ideally you want excellence. And once you get green flag, you can continue to move up in that, because there are bands within this when you get your scoring mechanism back with the feedback in terms of whereabouts you are. I know Daventry is over 80 is your score here.
And are you looking for continuous improvement once the first flag had been awarded?
Yeah, correct. And obviously you get feedback from the judge, and the next full judging visit you provide comments based on the feedback you had before, saying where you've improved. So it's very much peer review, I think is the best way of describing it. So in the desk assessments, we look across all your policies, your plans, procedures, ensure the consistent standard for all year round. And basically, once you read the management plan, that gives the judges areas to investigate. There could be comments in there that are unclear. There could be an action plan that you're looking for areas on the site that have been done. For example, you might say in 2016 we're going to resurface the car park. Therefore, the judge would expect the car park to be resurfaced. So it starts unpicking anything like that, and make sure that the authority has things like risk assessments and all those sort of strategies in place that support a safe, quality park.
Some of those things, Chris, are basic compliance requirements, aren't they?
They are. But you'd be surprised, even in 2017, some authorities do not do some basic stuff.
So in actual fact, the baseline for this is reviews, are you meeting those basic compliance requirements, etc.?
So do you assess the management control as well from a day-to-day basis? The documentation that says this is what we've done last week, the week before.
We look for how the house managers, yes, in terms of programmes of work, the budgets, how that pans out. So we ask for all that level of information, how it fits strategic-wise, and if, as many places are, there's different contracts around these days, how is that controlled? If you've got one person doing trees, one contractor doing litter, one doing grass cutting, how does it work? From documentation, you can only get a flavour, but that builds up the lines of inquiry for the day, basically.
Going back to that point, would you also look at the due diligence that the park or the park management undertake, in particular when it comes to those contractors?
Yes. And things like friends groups. There's a friends group obviously Daventry. So you often pull up to minutes of friends group meetings on what they're doing, how they influence, how they engage with the council. Do they engage with the council? Does the council engage with them? All those sort of aspects we go down. Really, just to make sure that it's not just a tick box exercise. If you're working in partnership, you're working in partnership. So we ask those sort of questions, and these are sort of documents. Every authority's got different sort of documents. There's no set way of doing the management plan. There's been publications over the years saying you should do it this way. The next publication says you should do it that way. Ultimately, a management plan should be there that if I walked into your park tomorrow to manage it, the information is there for me to do that. Equally, everyone should be able to understand it. It shouldn't be speed that people can't understand. It should be straightforward. But giving all that right information and the right links for people to make those management decisions to run the park. And it should be usable and not stuck under the desk so it's a bit wobbling. It is one of those documents. Third assessment, where you get a couple of judges going out, following those lines of inquiry, and a set criteria that we judge against and start scoring against. So these are the main criteria. A welcoming place, and we'll do this in detail in a second, we'll actually unpick these further down in a second. Healthy, safe and secure, clean and well maintained, environmental management, biodiversity, landscape and heritage, community involvement, marketing and overall management, which goes back to your point about how it's all managed. So welcoming place, it is those basic things when you arrive at a site. Is it welcoming? Is there good and safe access? Is there correct signage? Is there signage to the site? Is there a sign when you get there? So, for example, a brown tourist sign saying Daventry Country Park, which obviously you've got, and a sign saying Welcome to Daventry Country Park, and is it accessible for all? And this is a park crossing Solihull. This is Malvern and Brewery Park, which demonstrates sort of a welcoming entrance. It doesn't all have to be like this, of course.
Just on accessibility, obviously a country park, say like the Daventry, is sort of by its nature semi-inaccessible. Does that still count as long as you've got areas of accessibility?
Yes, it's what's appropriate for the landscape.
Okay.
If you've got a historic landscape with steps, there's no way your English heritage are about to let you flatten those, put a huge ramp in. It's not appropriate. Equally, if you've got a major country park, it's not appropriate to put tons and tons of concrete paths across it. So it's what is appropriate for that site.
Thank you.
That goes back to the documentation management plan, so the judge understands that site when they get
It's got a context.
Yeah. So, healthy, safe and secure. Is there safe equipment and facilities? That could be play equipment, that could be all sorts of facilities on the site, because obviously green flag sites differ hugely in scale. Personal security, that could be CCTV, that could be a park ranger, that could be a police office based in the middle of the park. And basically how you feel. That also includes looking at usage patterns. Part of the judge's training is to examine who's using the site when you're there, i.e. using your eyes. There are certain sections of our society and community who don't traditionally use green spaces unless they're extraordinarily safe. And I'll use Asian ladies as one example. But if you start seeing single Asian ladies walking around the park, they must feel very safe for that to happen. Culturally, they don't want to do that. So you can start to get a picture of whether people feel safe. Appropriate provision of facilities, is that with appropriate again? Some sites, like Daventry, don't put bins in. Some who don't have play equipment. Is that appropriate for that site? That goes back to documentation and your justification for doing that. Again, that's fine. The quality of facilities and that good old favourite dog fouling question that gets everywhere. And these are some of the facilities down at the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park in London, which is also a green flag site. Just in terms of, I put that on purpose because everyone thinks water features are brilliant, and they are, but in terms of healthy, safe and secure, have you got your Legionella checks, or your Legionella records, and all your things like that. So we're going to dig deeper to make sure it is.
Right. So in that case then, if you saw that feature, then that would trigger...
That triggers a whole lot of questions about Legionella.
How do you manage the water, etc.?
Correct, water quality. Clean and well maintained. This is one that most people get, to be fair, because what you visually see when you walk into a site. So it's litter and waste management, horticultural maintenance, arboricultural maintenance, building infrastructure, i.e. those footpaths, those buildings, those ranger stations, and equipment maintenance. So again, we're scoring all of these. Just an example there, that's some of the artwork and ground stuff in Holland Park in London, the Japanese garden there. But some of these things will not be applicable to all sites. The mathematical equation we use is, if it's not applicable, it's taken out of the mathematical equation, so it doesn't penalise anybody. So if you've not got high horticultural maintenance, then it wouldn't disadvantage you. If you have no trees, it would disadvantage you, because some sites have no trees even, believe it or not. Environmental management, that's really managing the environmental impact of the site. And what are those sort of impacts in terms of water, power? Are you now using solar panels on the roof, for example, or reusing rainwater? Chemical use, are you using chemicals or not? Are you reducing chemicals? Same with peat, are you using peat or not? If you have traditionally used peat, are you trying to reduce that use? Important in today's world, the interesting in Ireland, where Green Flag is, of course, they use peat everywhere, and they think it's the right thing to do. Quite interesting. Quite a debate happens around those in Ireland.
With respect to the chemical use question, then, so what sort of things would you be looking for there? I mean, clearly you'd be looking for the substances to be legal, etc.
Legal, stuff like are using chemicals, and some places don't use chemicals at all these days. It's all manual control. There's some sites that even ornamental sites have gone back to fair liquid in water to control green fly and roses. Those old methods that were there years ago, purposely, so they don't use chemicals on that site. Some people only use chemicals as a last resort for things like Japanese knotweed or mare's tail, those sort of invasive weeds that you can't control any other way.
So then you start looking at storage and training for application.
It's P1, P6 certificates.
Yeah.
Are they stored correctly? Where's the records? We start going down those sort of questions. If a judge is unhappy with some of those responses, as I've been, you end up looking in the chemical store.
Yeah.
You start going down that road, and all of a sudden you think, crikey, these chemicals are banned. It's sitting in here. This can so yeah, again. Once you start picking at something, it soon unravels when something's not
I can
right.
imagine that could happen actually. So take me to your chemical store, and then guessing you
correct.
go in and
Where's your chemical records?
exactly.
And we have done. We've picked a date. Look, the chemical taken out. Does it all balance up? Is it done correctly? Because that gives a good impression of whether the site's managed.
How it's kind of managed in that respect.
Or not. So we can't go into minute detail.
Yeah, that's quite a good insight actually. Thank you.
Waste minimisation, it is what it is. It's about reducing waste. Now that could be chipping green waste, for example, on site rather than taking it away. It could make log piles from tree waste and large logs. And adapt to climate change, it's have you had to put things in place because of our changing climate, i.e. flood and drought in particular. Southeast of England these days, long periods of drought. Are they changing planting methods? Are they doing main water collection to try to save water? Equally, sites these days are changed in the management to act as flood basins, for want of a better word, and hold water back from town centres, and a water meadow type of style grounds maintenance. All part of that adaptation to climate change. And this is again coming into the Olympic Park with some of their meadow areas around. This is quite famous in 2012 in terms of the Olympics, and the planting style was adapted there. Hugely colourful, but actually quite low maintenance. So everyone thinks it's wonderful, which it clearly is, great for biodiversity, but actually quite low maintenance. Talking about biodiversity, we go on to there in terms of management of natural features, wild flora and fauna. So obviously an area like this is where Daventry Country Park really starts scoring highly. Conservation landscape features and conservation buildings and structures. So that is really about conservation in its widest sense in terms of both the wildlife and the environment in general. The feature you have on site is historic. This year the National Trust are coming on board for some trials. Clearly they've got some historic sites, but it's also about, we've got capability landscapes. Some of the Royal Parks have got very historic landscapes, John Nash landscapes, etc. So it's a case of how they're managing it to the way it was designed originally.
And Chris, on the topic of the biodiversity, etc., would you be looking at what records are being kept?
Yes.
So, and would that be an area of continuous improvement, for instance?
Hopefully, yes. When we first started, people weren't keeping records really. A lot of people work with wildlife trusts these days who do that data recording as part of the work they're doing in terms of local biodiversity action plans, and they often do it for free if you know where you're doing it to collect that sort of data. So if you've got, for example, bat boxes, they'll do recording of bat boxes, and the bat conservation groups will come out and monitor those for you. Equally, species numbers of migrating birds all those sort of things. They'll start keeping records on that.
Key indicators. I would have thought, particularly Daventry Country Park, like I think you said, that'll be very good. So you'd be looking at what records you've been keeping over a period of time, and how are you managing the landscape to be able to increase that biodiversity, etc.
And if there are natural trends in some of that migration of birds, whilst you can try to encourage different bird life, with our changing climate, some of that is also changing. So some of it might not be a result of your management techniques. It could be a wider, I wouldn't say problem, but a wider change in the migration of birds.
Can management be doing nothing? Because obviously we're talking about wildness here, so it's like...
It could be something. You're quite right. One of the best habitats of butterflies, for example, is brambles and nettles. In which case you have areas that you just leave alone. And as long as that's in the management plan you're doing that, you won't be scored badly at all, because you've said that's where you get managed a site for these reasons, and there you are, that's the evidence, that's perfect.
But I suppose partly then you'd want to play in kind of communication of that as well, so those little signs, this is left aside.
Correct. And we'll come on to marketing shortly, and that's part of that interpretation and wider education in terms of why certain management practices are best placed.
So just in terms of development, if you were sort of saying, yes, we've got that area there that we actually physically manage, we've got that area that we leave, and then as it goes on, your management plan, actually we don't want to do that, we'll change our management plan, that we leave everything. Does that take you back, or does that sort of take you back a step on your assessment, or do you sort of go, no, that's fine, that's
as long as the rationale is there while you're doing it. There are sites that, one of the examples down in Hillingdon, where it was 16 football pitches, 8 pitches on one side of the road, 8 pitches on the other side of the road. They decided on one side of the road to stop cutting the pitches and just let the grass grow along, cut footpaths through it. The rationale being the football pitches weren't being used, there was a deficit in various insects and moths, and by doing that we encourage those sort of species. Perfectly good rationale for doing it, not a problem at all. And if you go down there to this day, where are the people walking, where are the kids playing, all on the site that is basically not really being managed. Long grass. It creates a nice place to walk through.
Sounds like Hackney Marshes.
So as long as the rationale is there, then that's fine. We judge on what you tell us and why you're doing it. So not our own personal views on.
So the key to this, Chris, is that document, which is the management plan. So it's basically, this is our intention.
This is our intention. This is why we're doing it. This is what we have. This is how we're managing it.
So we don't have our team to come back to us and say, actually, we're going to leave the whole of the country park to go.
Because the rationale behind it.
Councillor Paul, do you have a question?
Well, within the management plan, I can't remember. When we were talking about it several years ago, within the management plan there must be a red line around the designated area, which is the country park. The question being is that as Daventry is growing and we are extending the country park, we're extending it north, there are other major areas of public open space. Would it be a natural progression for the green flag to include those areas, or would those areas have to have an individual management plan and an individual red line?
If it's an extension to the country park, you just extend the red line around it. Whenever you take a piece of land on, you just on the next submission of the management plan, you just increase your red line.
Because it's a continuous area.
It's a continuous area.
So you change the boundary.
Correct. We are trying this year, Milton Keynes, where there is a lot of green space, not necessarily all connected, but Milton Keynes is slightly different from most cities in the UK, the way it was developed 50 years ago. Well, it's not necessarily one big town park, it's sort of all got all over the place. And we're piloting where that could be judged as a green space. So it could be in years to come that there could be a more flexible approach, where there's wider areas of green space, all interconnecting somehow.
So could you have an annex to it?
You could do it.
So you could have somewhere
Yeah.
a quarter of a mile away.
And that's what piloting in Milton Keynes. So if that part works,
Yeah.
then obviously we will be looking at it in the future.
Thank you. We'll let you carry on, Chris. We're conscious of your time.
That's okay, don't worry. So obviously I'll put that's Queen's Park Bandstand in London, Corporation of London, that is, in terms of features of conservation. It could be anything, obviously I'll put bandstand there. Community involvement. This is how the community is involved in the management and development. This can be a friends group in terms of how they interact with the authority. Doesn't have to be. Some communities don't want to engage in that format, so they often have things like community forums. It could be a parish council. It's so long as the managing authority understands what the community wants and is delivering and can demonstrate that. That could simply be that every year we stand on the site with a questionnaire and here's the results of what people tell us. And because they told us this, we've done this. So it doesn't have to be a formal friends group. Many sites do have them, but not all. And is it appropriate for that community? Again, it goes back to what you set out in the management plan to provide. I'll use the example. It's a cemetery. I'll put play area in the middle of it. It's not really an appropriate place to do that sort of thing. Slightly different community in a cemetery, but it's that principle that you demonstrate you're providing what the community aspires to.
So on that one, you would get feedback from the friends or whatever the group was. You'd actually go and talk to them.
We do talk to
in terms of your
Yes.
walk around and discussion.
I would normally ask for our friends to be there on the day at the set time. I often break off from the group and speak to the public on site as well, because they'll always tell you the truth. They will, the public. Saying, no, I thought something happened today. They've not cut the grass for 6 weeks, and they could have guessed it because the Euro obviously coming. So people are very honest in what they tell you. Equally, they're saying this is a wonderful site. I come every day. They really do. Just a few different sort of community pictures here. Communities can be inner city communities. Where people don't speak English as their first language and they come together around a garden or community growing area. It could be that a school adopts an open space. That one's across in Derby, where literally the school's next door to it, so all the kids come out every day, they plant trees on the park, that's their green exercise in the park every day, they do welly walks in the winter, so they get out when it rains still. As you can see, the kids have a wonderful time. It could be how you engage in volunteering, whether that's for volunteering, corporate volunteering, or just individuals that say, actually, a bit like Daventry, I know volunteer. People say, "Oh, I work volunteer at Daventry, Country Park." How do you do that? Is there policies in place? Are they insured? Do their own training? Things like that. There's some of our corporate volunteers issue actually planting in rugby.
Can I ask you a question about corporate volunteering? Do you charge them for volunteering in rugby?
No, we don't.
No.
We're happy to get the volunteers, to be fair. Because we had 20 volunteers planting trees with 2 of our staff.
Yeah.
That you get our trees planted for that.
So it's a proper structured corporate volunteering exercise.
Yes.
Do the companies give you the trees as well?
The trees are given free from Wilton Trust for us.
Yeah.
So it depends on the company. So some companies will treat that slightly different because obviously the trees were provided. So some volunteers will want to do things like painting of railings or painting of play equipment, and they'll bring the paint with them. They'll say, "What do I need to bring?" It really is dependent on the company. So some of the big national companies all now give their staff a couple of days to do this a year.
A quick question for us actually, do we do corporate volunteering? I think I've seen instances where people like Cummins or Barclays kind of chip in and do things. Do we use them in the country parks at all? Julia, I think that's a question for you actually.
Cummins,
Do we encourage them to do these kind of activities?
Cummins have used their staff for the community centre.
They have done, haven't they? Yeah.
They've used it for the Phoenix Centre.
Yeah.
Back in the day, DHL have also been involved with that type of project.
Yeah.
There has been some at the visitor centre in the country park. I'm not sure which company, but
Cummins.
Cummins.
And the Century Garden as well as the visitor centre.
Yeah, so basically in those situations situations they would approach us, would they, as their local authority to ask us if there are opportunities?
Yeah. They're normally, sometimes they approach the park direct, possibly even give the park a ring or the rangers. But in the current financial climate, it's a good use of staff, basically.
Yes.
Which is what we don't charge.
But you still need to take some time out to coordinate the activity, etc. Briefly.
And if we've got our accepting volunteers, then we're asking questions about insurance. Or do you train them?
Yeah.
Is it a managed process? As opposed to people randomly planting trees everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. Good.
And then things like marketing. Goes back to the signage issue in terms of if you are living in the area wild, how is that communicated? Is there any marketing promotion? Is it needed and is it appropriate? There are some sites that actively don't promote themselves because they're already at bursting point. And that's fine, again, just telling us that, so we can understand that. Are they using Facebook, Twitter in terms of information channels these days? Are we reaching new audiences? And it could be a poster is fine. That goes back to understanding your audience. And if you use your part, young people, how do you communicate? Stick a poster on. You're mainly Facebook and Twitter to talk to young people these days. And is there any educational information, whether it's a visitor centre, for example, at Daventry Country Park? Any information within that? Is there signage in terms of wetland habitat, woodland habitat, which will enable schools to go around, for example? Some authorities provide schools packs to give out to teachers, so it's very much interlinked with education. Or it could be a scout visit or something like that. Is it led by a ranger or is it self-led? No right or wrong answer there. People do it differently, but it's making sure the information is there. So just some examples here. It's a case of is the correct interpretation of signage, are you using Facebook, iPads or QI codes or whatever they are these days. And the top one is actually new at Castle, where they do reenactment with the kids in terms of the Civil War within the park. A whole range of things can happen in terms of marketing communication and the way you get messages to young people on the benefits of green space. And the management, and that goes back to the point about are you doing what you said you're doing in the management plan? If you said you're going to cut the grass every week and we get the grass is this long, what's gone wrong? Equally, if you say you're not going to cut the grass and you cut it for me, well, that's also wrong because I'm only judging you what you should be doing.
For me, Chris, that's the biggest learning so far of this whole exercise is that you have a management plan, you stick to it.
Yes.
And it's basically how that is constructed that's interesting. Do you get into the detail about that? So how have you come up with this management plan? Why is this management plan right for this particular location, right for
that goes back to what's appropriate for that site.
Yeah.
And it could be, especially the current climate where things change halfway through a management plan. Some management plans are 5 years, some are 10.
Yes.
So we ask for an annual update. And it could be 2 pages, that's all, of what's changed. And it could be, we did plan to research the car park this year, but the budget isn't there, it's been put back 2 years. And that's fine. The judge just needs to know that.
Yeah, but in terms of the long-term direction of travel for the park, you'd expect all those things to feed into that long-term. And they're basically, like all those things aren't they about creating a good space for the community and biodiversity, etc.
So it goes back to all the previous criteria.
Yeah, the kind of principles.
When you look after the site. So I'll just run through a couple of slides in terms of the different sorts of green space that Green Flag applied to these days. Universities. This is the University of Nottingham, or Nottingham University. Both Nottingham Universities now have Green Flag, as do about 15 other universities around the country. Coventry University have got it, Keele University, Loughborough go this year for it, so all the big universities, because they recognise a quality green environment actually is good for students and learning, and all those sort of benefits that a nice environment stimulates. So they also promote it in terms of engaging and getting more students. Places like Lancaster and Exeter University, which I've both visited both of those, they actually put on their prospectus saying come to a Green Flag University.
And of course Nottingham University's always had beautiful gardens.
Yes,
actually.
correct.
I've been to open days there.
And again, they have to match the criteria, so all that criteria we've been through, we have to go through. Crematoria, who knows what rains will come in years to come?
Been through those gates many times.
Since London Crematoria.
Only one more time, Colin.
I know we are hoping rains will become a Green Flag crematorium because of the grounds there as well.
The trouble is, within the range of that, half a mile, there's about 4 various crematoriums.
So there are a number of crematorium and cemeteries around the country which are green flag. Across in Jersey, this is the Windsor Churchill Gardens, which is more a botanical site, quite a unique habitat and landscape there, the way they manage that. In Simbury Ards Bay, across in Jersey. There's about 1,500 green flags around the UK at the moment. Students were set out on this year's major judging. Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park in London. When the Olympics went to London, Boris Johnson as mayor, and Ken Livingstone before that, both committed to create a green flag standard park to be the legacy from those Olympics. And part of the legacy had to be green flag standard, and we're pleased to know it is. And I was involved in the transformation actually. I've got some great pictures just after the Olympics are finished, the Paralympics are finished, and all that transformation process through. And I was involved in advising them in terms of how you transfer a world-class Olympic venue to a world-class public park.
You'd be interested to know then, Chris, that Tokyo Olympics were in London today, running a session to get people to go out there and support it. I was meant to be there, but unfortunately I couldn't make it.
Because there's a link there in terms of whether green flag then leaps across Japan, but I won't point it. Nature reserves, this Home Fleet Nature Reserve in Nottingham, and that's very much a light touch maintenance programme on purpose because of this is Washlands, River Trent, so there's limited works they do on that because it floods on purpose, but it's all about biodiversity and habitat management, water voles and things like that. Maxwell Canal was the first end of the canal to get a green flag, so that's a 26 mile stretch of the canal. The Canal River Trust, who now manages the waterways, want eventually all canals to reach green flag standard. Which is an interesting one to judge.
Well, there's some for a story for me. I've had a canal arm cancelled for.
So when you get to Marina, so all the Canal River Trust, their aspiration is for all of it to be green flag standard. And there's a second canal coming this year, and I can't think what it is. Come to me. This is Bournemouth and Christchurch hospitals that got the green flag last year, and that's all about the experience of visiting a hospital and being in hospital. Actually, there's now proven benefits of having a quality landscape around the hospital to aid and improve and quicken your recovery. Wonderful data that we've got here in terms of the healthy agenda and how it can save the NHS billions of pounds just about access to green space. I'm sure this will, in the coming years, this will come to the fore in terms of the data they're collecting. So they've become the first hospital to have green flag.
Councillor Paul.
If I may, the shot of the hospital has brought something to mind. There are a number of parks, etc., that are of a considerable age that were designed and managed at a time when the equality, mobility, etc. So where are we with green flags, with mobility? Would that restrict the green flag if mobility scooters couldn't be used? Or
it has to be accessible to all, but with the word appropriate next door to it. So it could be historic landscape with steps, and they were part of the John Nash historic design 300 years ago. It's possibly not appropriate to put a ramp in.
Yes, sir.
But equally, there's lots of sites where there should not be steps, it should be level access, and lots of sites are level access. So mobility students can go around it.
But it wouldn't mark you down in a criteria if there was an area of, for instance, natural swamp where you had to walk.
Because that's
where there's on the walk through it.
And actually, Councillor Boyd, if you look at particularly organisations like the RSPB, even right across those kind of swampy areas, they've got boardwalks in, so it's kind of how you design it in.
Correct. I mean, I've been to the Home Peel, for example. Most of that, if you're in a wheelchair, is inaccessible, but they have got an area with a boardwalk where someone in a wheelchair could engage with nature.
Of course,
so it's what's appropriate.
Yeah, in our country park, of course. So basically, it's the plan which is important.
Yes.
And
you considered. We do get disabled visitors, in which case there is an area where they can engage with nature, they can get close to the water, they can even do some pond dipping, but they couldn't go across 3 miles worth of wetland. Not appropriate.
And you've got a conflicting stakeholder interest, I guess, in that respect.
You have a conflict with the Canal and River Trust who want a oldie-worldy bridge, for want of a better word, which is not compatible for wheelchairs or mobility scooters.
It goes back to what's...
There is that conflict.
Yeah. But it's what's applicable. Is it applicable to knock every single bridge down in the canal network? Possibly not.
No.
But if they happen to be changing bridges to today's standards, then you would expect that to be in there.
Of course.
Correct. So it's what's appropriate.
Good. I'm conscious of your time, Chris. You've given me lots of questions there.
That's okay. Keep on firing.
That's fine. We'll fire.
It's what I live for half the time. Across Australia, this is Fitzroy Park in Melbourne. Australia and New Zealand have got green flag. It's out in some of the Commonwealth countries. A large growing area. They see it very much in terms of the international standard for parks and green spaces, and are pushing it very heavily in the southern continent. This is Holland. Got some Maskbach in Almelo in Holland. There's a number of Danish parks now got it, like the Dutch parks are not Danish. And the interesting thing is, and this is where the government angle is in the current world we sit in, that they're looking to the UK as world leaders in parks. The UK invented parks. The UK have a huge wealth of experience in parks. And they look to the UK as a leader in parks, which is why it's becoming such an international standard for public parks. This is down the park in Abu Dhabi. Yes, it's green in Abu Dhabi.
These look like your holiday photos, Chris.
I did take them. So apologies for the standard of them. But out here, we're Middle East here, we're outside Europe here. And we're out there doing this, and they're saying we want British landscape architects, we want British machinery, we want British products, British play equipment, British gym equipment, because Britain are the world leaders in parks. So in terms of the new world that we face as a nation,
we voted for Brexit now.
There's really opportunity here for the government to take the lead in terms of the way green flag actually works internationally. So this is down the park, and the interesting thing is, because I was out 3 or 4 times last year in the Middle East, because I class myself as being thick, quite obviously I am, because I read the papers and sometimes half believe what you read in it, but across in UAE, they have female park managers, they have female employees. It is very much a level playing field in terms of the world of work. Not necessarily what you read in the UK media about a Muslim country.
So we're quite time actually, Chris, and thank you for that. One question though, when you go into Abu Dhabi and you assess the working conditions in terms of making sure they've got due diligence, what if you had workers, say, from Southeast Asia? How would you know they were not enslaved park keepers, slave labour? How would the green...
It goes back to the management planters, how it's managed, the contractors. We're here raising a flag in Al Rabah Park, which is on the road between Abu Dhabi and Dubai. I have representatives of the contractors there with us as well, and their park management process. And we speak the same as if I was in Daventry Country Park. I'd speak to the gardeners or park ranger. If we're out there, we speak to the person that's doing the grass or whatever, and so you engage and have that conversation.
They love a good photo opportunity.
They love a good photo opportunity, and so do I. Which one there?
I don't know who's competing most for the picture on this one. Great, thank you.
And the Middle East is seen as a huge growth area. There's currently 4 green flags in Abu Dhabi. 14 have been forward this year for judging. So it's a huge expansion.
Well done.
Any further questions? I know you've got to go.
Oh gosh. We can turn the lights on now. So you finish your popcorn, everybody.
Is it possible to have a copy of that?
The slide deck.
Yeah.
Yes,
please. That's always a good question.
Yeah, when this got
Wendy, the gold's under the tree.
It's brighter than it was earlier, Wendy, actually, isn't it? That's less gloomy now. Well, I'd like to thank you for that. I think we probably took the questions as we went, which is helpful. I certainly found that very illuminating. A bit of an anorak on these things. Did anybody else have any further questions, comments, thoughts?
No, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, Councillor Bridger.
Just one question. That was really interesting, thank you for that. I suppose the question surrounds the areas that are applying for multiple green flags. and sort of some of the impact on urbanisation, because footfall, some of those things you measure on are going to be adversely affected, graffiti, everything else.
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering what allowances you make. Are they disadvantaged if you've got more than one site to maintain? And you ever come across an area perhaps where they put all those in one basket and then they've neglected other areas? Does that ever happen at the showcase in particular?
In the current climate, some authorities are changing management on some sites so they don't cut their premier parks. That is happening in some areas of the country. Equally, areas like Nottingham, they've got aspiration for every single park to be green flag. So every single green space will meet that standard. I think Hendon in London, which is one of the boroughs, are putting in 50 green flags this year. And their number one corporate priority is for every single green space to meet the green flag standard, because they see it as their prime driver for health and equality. So they're making sure the resources are there. So whilst obviously expansion is happening in the southeast, and we've got new communities coming in, they're resourcing it so they haven't got graffiti, or if it appears they're cleaning it off. So they've got the wardens out there to react to whatever happens. That sort of bucks an actual trend, to be fair, in a world where there's lots of cuts. But corporately and politically, they've had that decision.
They see it as being very good.
Because they see it as their number one priority. They've got a very obese, mixed community, costing NHS billions and billions. They say the only way of solving that is to get people active, and all the data is there that people will be active on quality green space.
If the park is attractive.
If the park is attractive and safe and clean, and everything you've just seen, people will use it. If it's not, they won't.
Excellent, thank you.
To answer your question, sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. Last one from Councillor Paul, must move on.
Just couple of comments. Thank you very much indeed for the enlightenment. Please take a comment back to Rugby. The exceptional floral arrangements during the summer, the hanging baskets, the tubs that are in the central reservation, Corporation Street comes to mind.
Yes.
Please take that back, because they're absolute joy. If you could give us an idea, not during this meeting, you have a number of low maintenance roundabouts that are absolutely beautiful. One has got a boat in the middle, etc., etc.
Well, by Warren Sheriff School, actually, Harrison's School.
Yes.
And if you can pass any information on regarding those low maintenance roundabouts, that would be much appreciated.
No problem at all.
Yeah.
Perhaps even pass it to Julian.
Yes, I'll pass it to Julian.
Very good. Well, good luck with your collection of your award. Well deserved, I'm sure. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and see us this evening. Actually, I found that very inspiring, illuminating, and engaging. Thank you. And we appreciate your time. You're dismissed if you wish.
I look forward to your next visit in New Zealand.
See what I'll
Yeah, this one, because how do you get into judging green?
I've been thinking that myself.
I won't say last time in Parks Management possibly, but no, anyone in the green space industry.
Yes.
I also train new judges as well, so
There you go, Mark. Get
brilliant. Thanks ever so much.
Councillor Paul will see you out.
Thank you.
So, see you later.
Premises, as they
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Very good. Right, well, that was the light side of the meeting, folks. What we're going to do now is we're going into agenda item number 5, and on this one we should be kicking off on the corporate strategic plan. However, what I'd like to do this evening, while we're a bit fresh, is I'm going to flip it a little bit, and also because we've got some extra individuals joining us. So Councillor Osborne and Maria Taylor are going to join us. So we're going to go to 6C. Is that okay for everybody? I'm going to switch to 6C. Oh, sorry, I'm not going to flip it quite that radically, am I? No, good point. I'm not going to flip it quite that radically. I'm still going to have your session first, Julie, actually. Then we're going to go on to the agenda. You got a bit excited there. So, first of all, we're going to have a look at the corporate strategic plan, and then we're going to go on to 6C, okay? That way you won't have to wait too long, Councillor Osborne, as well. So, You've been dangerous with us. Okay, so this is the point of the agenda, everybody, where we go for the corporate plan. Any questions, comments, and Julie is going to give us the highlights, as always.
You want to shoot the sheep in the car park?
Thank you. Right, over to you, Julie.
If everyone's okay, if I just talk about the Reds.
Yeah, well, this is interesting because we haven't got this in our agenda pack. We have to trust that you'll only show us the Reds, and there aren't Reds there that you're not showing us. But I think because we're already 45 minutes in, I'm happy to. Is everybody happy to do that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
okay. Do by exception.
You will see them, but there are actually only 3 Reds. I'm pleased to report. So the first one is commercial floor space with planning permission due to council action excluding town centre retail or leisure. You'll see this has moved from green last quarter to red. The reason for that is that the progress hasn't changed, but the target did change. And the reason for that was at the beginning of the year, we hoped we would have got some of the planning permission moved forward towards the end of the year. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened, although work is still ongoing, so it has now moved from the green into the red.
Right, and who can Councillor Paul give us some more information on this?
Site
as well?
5.
Sorry?
Site 5.
Site 5, right, okay.
Was going to come forward in December, I think, Julian. It's just dragged on into recent days.
Yeah, there is that, and there's also, it was actually a master plan for Site 3 that was the main one as part of this. And although work is ongoing and negotiations are still happening, it's not actually happened quite, it's always a difficult one to actually judge, but it's not happened quite as we'd have hoped at this point. But there is still work, ongoing, and the management place and the master plan site, because it was agreed we needed to get the master plan site correct.
Yes. Looking at where we are now then, bearing in mind this is a lagging indicator, do we expect to finish red on this one?
Yes.
Yeah. Any questions, comments? Pretty self-evident to have on this.
I would think it would go to amber with the exception of Site 3, Chairman.
I have no idea what you're talking about. What does that mean? The either goes red or is amber? Which one is it?
Site 5 will come on, which will assist, I believe, Julie. But Site 3 won't come on as quick as we envisage.
I have to say we're
Does
not.
that make sense?
Don't forget Site 5 already has permission, so it's by square meterage.
Yeah.
I know that we're going to get any extra, so I think the prediction is red.
Yeah, the prediction is red. We do not believe we'll achieve it at the end of the year at this point in time. Bear in mind we're now in February.
Okay, thank you. And it's just one of those things in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, no further. I don't think anybody else has any further questions on that one, so we'll move on
So
to
the
the
other
next
is
slide.
to show you the other 2 there are green. If I just flip through here, which will be quicker. The next red one is E2.1, which is the amount of waste going to landfill. This is over target. It is, as it says, the amount of waste going to landfill. It's cumulative target. They have, unfortunately, we have exceeded the target for the year now, so it will stay red.
Julie, on this one, I witnessed that phenomenon people sometimes speak of a couple of weeks ago, and my waste has been collected. When on Middlemore, they basically took all the blue and red and put them in the same bin. And that's sometimes for, what is the purpose of doing that?
We have got, we do. The issue is where they've had vehicle breakdowns and they cannot get another curbsider, which is the ones that usually collect the 2 separate bins, and they can't get a vehicle replacement in time, so to make sure it's still actually emptied,
Right.
They will commingle the red and blue boxes. That doesn't mean that it's going to landfill. They do then separate it back at site, or they send it to a commingled recycling plant, and they do actually get less money for that because it's not as valuable in terms of resale, but they do still recycle them, so it's not going to landfill.
How do you know?
Well, we've been to the depot, we've seen, we have witnessed it. It is also very much in their interests because they pay for landfill. They get recycling credits for the amount that goes to recycling, so it's very much in their interests financially to actually recycle as much as possible.
On those
We have done
occasions-
checks.
Right, on those occasions, say for instance a couple of weeks ago, when they clearly had a round that was doing that, do they report that to you that they've had to do that?
Yes,
So you would have a log.
Yes, as soon as they know it's happening, they let our call centre know, so if anybody rings up, we can instantly inform customers that that's happening. We also have a notice on our website actually informing people that we are aware it happens, and when it does happen, this is generally why it's happened, and this is what happens to the recycling. But they are very good at actually letting us know.
Right, that's prompted some questions. Let me take them in order. So Councillor Pritchard, Wesley, Paul, thank you.
So the current contractor setting that target, where do they get their target from?
It was a target that they put in their original bid documentation, what we had 5 years ago. It has been acknowledged that, that was the target they put in at the time. It was their choice. They are contractually obliged to stick to that target, albeit they have found that it wasn't a realistic target and they've not managed to achieve it. But because it's a contractual target, because of procurement regulations, etc., we cannot change that target, it's fixed.
Did we not have a role in sort of governance of that target, saying it's achievable, or even did it come from an average? Because what I'm fearful that we're Q3 now, we're going to a new contract, when we know that in terms of an opt-in for green waste, a lot of waste per kilogram is going to be put into grey bins in terms of weight rather than capacity. So that target's only ever going to go up in my mind. I can't foresee it going down unless we've got amazing strategies or that you're going to tell me about. So I don't want to see a target double to 700, 800. Then from a contractor, it's a spurious figure. So
obviously, going forward, we're aware of all the tonnage that we've had over the last 7 years. We will take that all into consideration. We have lots of data and research from, consultants from national figures that are out there that kind of says, oh, this is what's expected. We have, obviously worked all that through. I mean, obviously, what we are aiming for, and part of our aim going forward with bigger recycling, commingled recycling, etc., with actually less residual collections, is that landfill will go down because we're actually doing fewer collections. So obviously we will take all that data into consideration in terms of predicting what we think the future should be.
Okay, with that, Councillor Pritchard. Yeah, it's a tricky issue, isn't it? Because I think it was it recently or last year for the full data said that it was actually recycling had gone down for the first time in years. And somebody who's quite passionate about environmentalism as well, it does make me concerned that we're going to start going backwards on our environmental commitments.
I think what we've really looked at going forward is we have, if we're really honest, our current recycling regime isn't actually terribly simple. We've got lots of different boxes. There's lots of rules as to what you can put in what boxes. Your cardboard has to be A4 sized. There's no lids on the boxes, etc., etc. We've looked at all of those factors. We're making it as simple as absolutely possible. One big commingled bin, you can put all your recycling in it. And it's a case, we're already looking at education messages. How do we tell the public it's that simple? The food waste, what campaigns we need to do. And all of that work's already ongoing, but it's all part of the education and the change of the service come June 2018.
Keep it simple, basically.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Keep it simple and make it easy for people and just make it as easy as we possibly can.
Yeah, and I know one of the things we've also spoken about here before is also in the public realm have a similar system, so at least you're not doing two different things. Okay, let's go to Councillor Wesley then Councillor Paul.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing if we're going forward. We're going to be hopefully doing better on this. I'm really disappointed to see this going like this, and I think it's really odd that it goes up and down as well from period to period, or appears to. How come you can do it okay one period and not the next?
No, it's the end of the year. It's a cumulative figure,
Yeah.
so it drops.
Aren't they the numbers in the...
Yeah, where it's gone down there, that's the first quarter of 16-17.
Right.
So you'll see it sort of start again at the
Right,
beginning of the
okay.
quarter, and then
Got you.
it will rise accordingly because it's
The other thing
cumulative.
is, just about our contractor, I can't believe that it's beneficial for them to do the recycling when they don't do it. I don't understand if it is beneficial for them. Why?
It is beneficial
So
to them.
why do we think they don't do it then?
Well, no, we believe they do it. It comes back to were their figures, realistic when they first submitted them. And
Yeah, but surely the more that they do, then the better it is for them. If it's
yes,
beneficial
yes, it is,
for them.
absolutely.
So-
The more they recycle, the more they benefit in terms of financial terms.
So, so do we know why they don't do it then? That's what I'm saying.
But I'm not saying that we're saying they do it. The issue is they don't meet the target that they set contractually at the beginning of the contract.
Yeah, I understand that. But I'm just saying that if that was absolutely true, then they'd do absolutely as much as possible, wouldn't they?
They probably are, but they can't meet them.
Yeah,
Well, it's as simple as that.
Yeah,
Tony.
Yeah,
So there's no, the target should actually be probably the bottom line and not the top line.
Tony.
What they're doing is they're collecting everything that is put out by the households. So that really is their governing factor. They can't do any more without changing the household habits. So whilst they may commingle some of the materials, it is in their interest to then get them separated for recycling as they do.
I think that's right. I think it is driven by behaviour, and also about trust, actually, because I think when people, this kind of myth or story goes around, they do commingle and it goes off. People lose trust in how it gets managed. And even when I saw that the other week, and as many times I thought, is it worth it? Every Friday morning doing this and separating for the week, and that's with somebody like me who's very committed to the environmental activism, etc. And you still think, what's the point? Fundamentally, it's about trust, I think, as well as their capacity. And when you see things like they're not running their fleet of lorries properly, so they can't even get them, and you think, do they really? I guess we are where we are on the contract. We know we're nearly there at the end of it, and I'm sure this is a really hard future. I'm very sorry, but that's what we have to do. So, sorry,
just making a quick point. If you notice there that you do a year-on-year comparison, the performance is actually better in 16-17 than it was in 15-16.
Yeah, and that's of course I think.
Q3, not Q1. Yeah. So far.
Last comment, believe it or not, from Councillor Fowler. This one, then we'll move on to another indicator.
SMT meetings or SMT portfolio holders meetings are sick to death of me saying the same thing. Irrespective of our call centres, irrespective of our website, the word on the street is I can't be bothered to recycle because I see the vans or the trucks coming round week in, week out, chucking it all in one wheelie bin and putting it in the back of a lorry. And it doesn't matter how many times I tell my wife, and Tony and a few others laughed the other Wednesday, that Mrs. Recycle nearly kills me every Saturday when the bins come round and or when the trucks come round. And then there was one Saturday where allegedly they didn't have any vehicles, and there was 4 vehicles up on the headlands all sitting chatting to each other. But as you say, we are where we are. And Julia's got the most unenviable job, but I would still like to put a letter through every house, even if it's in our next Daventry calling, a full page, what we're doing,
Only if they recycle it.
Yeah, I can't say that. You can't say that unless you know.
So only if they recycle it afterwards.
But
it's going in there, and to the best of our knowledge, it is being recycled. It's commingled, and then it's separated again.
Sorry, Chair, in Market Harbour we have one bin, we stick all of it in, it's dead easy, and all the bins I ever see round about me are completely full.
We're exactly the same in Rugby Borough. But it goes back to what I said about making it simple going forward, about the education, the message. I can't deny that people see that happening, they think, why do we bother? We do as much publicity as we can to actually counteract that and put the message out. And it's very much, and we're still, don't think for 1 minute we sit here saying to the contractors, what you're doing is fine. In fact, we had a contract management meeting yesterday morning when they assured us they'd actually got another 7 vehicles coming into Daventry yesterday, to actually relieve the situation. So they're aware it is causing them financial problems as well.
I think from the bottom line is, from a customer's perspective, it is demotivating when you think your hard work goes and they're just doing that. I think that's where it does come down to trust, and I think a lot of it is it's that management in the system basically. I think the communication's a really interesting one, Councillor Paul, because it's quite a difficult message to communicate. What I've heard is if their lorries aren't working, that's why when they capture the waste, it looks at how do you write that in a story? Basically, their lorries don't work. It's not.
No, it's the fact that the vehicle. We're 5 years into the contract. The vehicles are getting slightly older. The curbsiders that they use are actually quite hard to get hold of and to replace.
We've got no spares.
And to get spares in, which means they have to use a different vehicle. So
Why
it's
is
not
that?
For maintenance.
Because
But don't they make those vehicles anymore?
they're
£1
certainly not particularly popular vehicles anymore, and not a lot of places have them. You also, and even as we look forward, each spare vehicle you have is quite a heavy cost to your contract. So there's a fine balance between how many spare vehicles you actually decide to have, because you don't want lots of spare vehicles sitting at the side that you've paid for at extortionate
So
cost.
basically, they're running lean towards the end of the contract, and it'll probably get worse in actual fact. That's a possibility.
Well, they have, as I say, they reassured us again yesterday that they've just actually got 7 vehicles in from a different contract that we're now using. That the problem is they won't all be curbsiders. So if a curbsider goes down, they will need to commingle. But at least they're still collecting it, and it is still being commingled. It is still being recycled.
And when do they separate the streams back out? So if they take card, paper, glass, plastic,
Some of
where
it,
does that get
if
done?
it's really easy to separate, we'll do it at the depot, but actually what they have is a different bunker, and it goes off to a different, and in fact we did a council visit to Cambridge last year, where a lot of it goes to Waterbeach, where they are set up, and it's all separated in terms of trolleys, and it's quite a fascinating process. That costs them more because they don't, it costs them more to actually take it there.
They get
less money for it because it's not as good quality recycling.
Yeah, because it's contaminated.
But no, it's not that it's contaminated. Well, it's just that it's mixed.
By definition,
So it costs more to process, and they don't get as good a fee for that. So it does cost them more, but it is still being recycled. But it goes off to a different stream or a different place to where their normal separated recycling.
Right, and you say some of it may actually stay at their depot to be separated. How do they do that in that case?
I think it very much depends on what vehicle they've gone out and what they've put in together. So, if it is simple to...
Chair, there's a bit of a redundant discussion because it's changing next year.
It is a redundant
and it will be
discussion.
completely different, I assume. So
let's have some
we can't have any input in changing it now.
No, that's the fundamental problem. It doesn't mean we can't want to understand the issue, not least as water.
But it's only a temporary issue, and then it'll go away.
But we're also looking at trajectory here, because if they're saying they've got problems with their equipment, I mean, you're right, there's nothing we can do, but I need to understand the situation of this. Councillor, but it's a fair...
Won't that be taken up with the new contract? That'll all be covered by it, won't it?
What is it?
Wait a minute. Councillor Pritchard's next one's Councillor Frenchman's first.
I finished.
Okay, Councillor Pritchard, then Councillor...
That was my point, somewhat. I find the world of waste management truly exciting and challenging in some ways because it must be an unenviable position. I can understand that. However, I'm not an economist, but we've got a big hole in the ground for landfill. We've got a decrease in recycling costs and disincentivised for a company to do that now because it's bare minimum. That's why a lot of councils have not pursued that, I understand from reading some papers. And with no penalty whatsoever in that we can put on our contractor for large amounts. So what is the disincentive for them not to landfill and the next contract?
They are penalised. There is a penalty mechanism in the contract.
That's triggered by this?
It's one of the measures that triggers the penalty. Yeah. They have been penalised to the absolute full extent for this.
And recycling credits massively outweigh how much it costs.
They actually
in the ground, so there is definitely a massive...
They get hit in 3 ways, because they get less recycling credits, and we also penalise them for the fact that they haven't reached their targets. So to be honest, what bigger incentive can you have than that for them trying to hit their target?
But there's a ceiling of penalties, isn't there?
There is
reached that already.
Yes.
And that can that be attributed to them time and time again?
Yeah,
it's an annual penalty.
Annual penalty of...
hundreds of thousands of pounds.
There's a maximum on it on where it's actually hit, on where it stops. they have hit the ceiling. We have hit the ceiling of that penalty.
As a company, you could project and build that in year on year, that that's what you're going to pay if you don't meet a target.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it won't ever incrementally get worse for them, but
Yes, the target starts again.
Yes.
It starts again
Oh, I
each
know.
year,
Well,
and
but yeah, it's
they
increased, cumulative. You can't add on to that. Addition, we missed it last year.
because they're penalised each quarter over the year, so the target's set over the year. So actually, if they'd have had a bad, they could have had a bad first 2 quarters, and then suddenly really, really improved, and it dropped. In which case they would, not suffer for the next 2 quarters. So it's a year-on-year penalty mechanism that is capped each year, and it's written into the contract. They know what that penalty figure is each year.
Good, thank you. I'm going to stop it there actually. Let's move on to the next indicator. I don't want to take any more questions like that.
Well, it's not a question,
Well, if you're going to make it very quick, so otherwise
a
we're going
very
to
brief statement when we talk about, Mrs. House and the recyclers. It is a political reason, but the perception of the council is critical, and the perception at the moment of the council is that they're doing nothing. I understand that we're in a 2-year rundown cycle. I understand that vehicles cost between £250,000 and £300,000 and they're not going to pay out for them, but I am concerned about the perception of council. And all I'm asking is that a single A4 leaflet be put through the door of houses to explain that we are commingling, they are being resorted, and please do keep on recycling. That's all I ask.
Yeah, Julie, can you have a look at that, please? Is there some kind of communication we can put out in Daventry Corner which explains the situation in the best possible way to make sure we don't look stupid?
Yes, we'll look at that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jim. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Much appreciated. And I completely agree. Let's go on to, I think, the final point, Julie.
Yeah, this is the final one that's in the red, so, things are looking very good. Generally, this is E4.2, conservation area appraisals carried out. It is a cumulative target over time. It's in the red because by Q3 we were hoping to have done 3 of these. The reason for this has been because of the delay in actually appointing a heritage policy officer. That person is now in place, hasn't been in place that long, and obviously it takes time to get these things moving. But they're already working with 2 areas, has already met with Harleston representative. So while that will be in the red for this year, certainly things are in place to try and improve that next year and get things
good.
moving.
So you've got a good foundation in place. Thank
Yes.
you.
I went to the Harleston consultation. I was quite impressed with the work that the officers had done.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the lady's name, the new conservation lady, Maria. What's her name?
Can't remember. She's on my team.
Oh, sorry, I thought she
No,
was.
she's planning policy, but she works very closely with Rachel.
Okay, yeah.
Tony, what's her name? Do you know?
No.
Sorry to put you on the spot. No, okay.
I sat at a meeting with the small name. I can't remember her name. So did
Right,
Steve.
here's the person.
I apologise for not knowing.
But obviously good feedback. Councillor Critchard, quick question.
She's doing a damn good
Thank
job.
you.
To that screen you've done, mind, Julie, with the red.
Oh, sorry.
It's got swings and roundabouts, this particular presentation, the way we do this, but can you see it okay?
Yeah, it's just Q1 target, having a target of 0 that you're going to meet by not doing anything. Is that actually practicable?
That was because of the fact that at the time they knew it was going. This is one of those things where it's not like collecting your rubbish and it happens weekly. It takes time to build up, and that's recognised in a number of the targets that we will achieve them over time, which is why they're cumulative targets over time.
We couldn't start with 1.
Oh, well, no, because
We hadn't appointed
So we didn't
at the
have
time.
to
yeah,
put-
we haven't
No
put,
point.
I think her name's Rhiannon Morgan. Just found her name.
It's not realistic in terms of timescales, and particularly on some of these bigger ones, they do take.
That's fine, so it won't be 0 again.
Not on this particular one. I mean, I'm not saying it might not be on another project if similar things occurred, because it takes time for things to actually build.
It's a 2-3-year project, if you recall. We set aside some over. We had more planning income than we'd expected about 3 years ago. And we set aside that money to invest in conservation areas. So it's a 2 to 3 year project.
Very good, thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions other than those that you can't see? Good. Julie?
I was just going to conclude by saying 88% of active measures are within 5% or better than target.
Thank you. Good conclusion. And Julie, I appreciate you must have a complete dread of coming here, particularly when it comes to the AIM contract. We know it's as hard for you as it is for any of us.
I think the crucial thing is that we learn, and going forward we build on that.
There's got to be a lot of lessons there, which I know you will have learned. Right, good. Thank you very much. If you wish to leave, you're more than welcome. Thank you for coming and being here for this period of time. And the next item on the agenda is number 6, and like I said, we're going to flip these around a little bit. And we're actually going to kick off with assignment 20. Now, this is quite an interesting agenda tonight, because I know we haven't got a full house, but we do have 14 assignments on the agenda, like I spoke about earlier. It's quite unwieldy. And my ambition tonight is at least to get a couple of these through and finished through the gates.
Julie, is that your business?
And on this one, it's assignment 20, and this is Councillor Frenchman's final report on the cooperation over major plan applications. Good. Thank you very much. Good evening. Appreciate your time, as always. Good, more like the matter. Thank you, Tony. Right, so thank you also for coming along and being patient, much appreciated. Be useful to have your contribution. Councillor Frenchman, I'm going to hand over to you for the usual modus operandi, which is you talk us through the report, go back to the rationale, talk us through the recommendations, then we'll take them and vote on them accordingly, or basically vote on them accordingly.
Thank you, Chair. I have a problem with this report because it isn't my report. It's been altered without my say-so and without my input, and so this isn't my report.
Right.
So I've redrafted my report, and that is what I want to submit.
Right, okay. Let's go back to the report, because obviously I as a chair had a hand in editing the report, of course.
It's to do with the recommendation.
That's what I'm focused on, because we have more recommendations. Now, before we do get there, in terms of the recommendations, well, you can't present another report, but you can talk us through recommendations that are on here first. And if there's some different recommendations you would like to bring to the table.
No, because my report should have been submitted to this meeting with the recommendations that I'd already put in. So I think they've been spuriously taken out against my wishes.
Right. I'm not sure about spuriously taken.
Yes, because I'm going to say you took the decision as chair to take them out without any reference to me, and I'm not happy with that.
Right.
And I think that is one of the things I want to discuss, is that the report is the ownership of the author, not the chair.
Right, okay. Let's come to you in a second. Councillor Pritchard.
Can you explain your role as chairman of the S&I committee in terms of editorial impact and what you're allowed and not allowed to do from a committee member to bring a report back?
Yes, certainly. As I see it, we have quite tight windows and time frames.
I'm sorry, no, that is not acceptable.
Well, yes, I think it is.
No, it isn't. Not for it's more important for a report to be right and acceptable and correct than for it to meet particular.
Well, no, I agree, but it's also
particular deadline.
It's also important for the recommendations to flow clearly and be well structured.
That's. I'm not saying they're not, but we haven't discussed them, so we don't know that. You've just taken them out.
Okay, well, there's two ways to approach this. We can either abandon the whole thing and go back to the drawing board and come back in next time, or we can take the ones that are on here. What would you prefer to do?
I prefer to do the first one.
Okay, fine. We'll do that then, and then we'll move on the agenda. So, what I'd like to do is we'll put it on the next agenda for you to represent it.
Well, I've got it here. I can get it to you tomorrow.
Well, that's fine, but we're not going to discuss it obviously tomorrow. So if you resend it, and then we'll take it like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would like to minute my annoyance at the change of my report without say-so from me.
Right, well, you're more than welcome to minute that. Thank you. But I actually, by the way, I don't think it's substantively different.
I do.
Right, okay, well, you just have to resubmit it and we'll take it on to the next meeting. Thank you. Right, let's move on to the next one then, in that case. Sorry.
Chairman, as a non-member of your committee, and I do appreciate you allowing me to speak, I think it would help if we saw, and I was able to play devil's advocate at the next meeting, both reports.
Well, I don't want to get into a compare and contrast, right? We have the report that's in front of us at the meeting.
Okay.
This report, you could have raised this beforehand, by the way. It's not
I
like...
I did send you an email,
Right.
but you didn't respond.
But actually, what we need to do is we need to get... Well, look, the thing is, we can work to different time schedules, we can have more meetings, etc. But what we have got is we have to get them into the papers in quite a bit of advance. As you know,
I don't disagree with that.
But anyway, we've dealt with that one. I'm not going to compare and contrast. We consider the paper in front of us, and that's the only one.
All right.
We're not happy with it, fine, agreed. Moving on to the next one, we'll re-raise it then. Okay. And that, I mean, and in terms of my role as chair, yes, I have to at least get us into a position where we can have some content to review. Okay. Thank you. Next one. So, you're more than welcome to go. Thanks for waiting.
What time the ice cream's coming?
Right. So, Councillor Frenchman, if you can represent it on the timetable, I should appreciate it. Thank you. The next one is assignment 18, which is to understand how... Well, that's not going to be considered this evening, because basically Councillor Robinson has requested information. Councillor 19, assignment 19 can't be considered because Councillor Brown is not here, and he gave us apologies. We then move on next to D, assignment 21, Councillor Pritchard. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's a verbal report under the overarching question, can DDC do more to support the cases of homelessness in the district? When this was launched, of course, it's a huge social phenomenon, it's very complex anyway. So the stage I'm at currently is really about background and engagement. Before I then go on to the next stage. In terms of talking about background engagement, people that are currently involved, that are liaising with me, are Mark Simmons from Health Watch. Actually, they're just about to publish a county-wide report with district demographics in terms of homelessness and policy, so I'm going to keep my powder dry in that respect. Incredibly helpful. Dave Berry, Chief Officer of Daventry CAB, in terms of his outlined incidents, legal aspects, policy. He's got the homelessness working background as well, done an awful lot of work in terms of shelter and other national agencies. Also Sean Murray, Community Law. He's been involved in terms of legal policy and DDC role and expectations, especially on referral on from those labelled as intentionally homeless or categorised. There's Churchview from Reverend Sarah in terms of Braunston, social and community burden. There is a South North Hants Council view. I've been in liaison with Catherine, who's councillor there, to get a comparator, local government comparator, some policy and planning. Town council liaison in terms of their views, the impact upon what usually is centralised demographics of homelessness. Also, I've yet to receive a response from a lady called Avril Lacal, Royal Greenwich Borough, in terms of best practice and innovation, what they've done there locally, even though their demographics are different. A housing provider was Futures Housing, their input as well I thought would be valuable. And also Sergeant Sam Dobbs, I've just emailed today, from his point of view of interaction and a field overview from Northants Police. So those are the people that are on board in terms of give a good eclectic picture, and I've ended their email to them with the question in terms of what can DDC do in terms to support homelessness within the district. So I've got background, got information, I want recommendations from them. A lot of those are field workers that have much more experience than I do. So there are some emergent themes. I'm not going to predetermine any kind of recommendations, but they are around detection and reporting validation. That has been a great issue for many different authorities because it relies on actual data capture from individuals. So we're talking about a strategy now of actually a walk round on a given night to try and detect exactly the incidents in the Daventry district. in terms of numbers, because our reported numbers, anecdotal, of individuals, I don't think we can have a true picture that will lead to what we should do if we don't know the problems that we have.
By definition, these people are moving about.
There are safer surfers as well, there are individuals, multiple occupancy, young people, garages, tents, caravans, indeed, cars.
Yeah. Any sources of homes? Councillor Frenchman?
Yes, I think one of the things that I'd like you to do is to make clear what homelessness is.
Yeah.
Because I think, until you just said what you did, I'm thinking, well, it's just people sleeping in doorways, but actually it isn't when you talk about these other categories. And I think that's an important, otherwise people will lose.
That definition will be at the forefront of the report.
Right, that's brilliant. And do we have any idea of numbers? I mean, is it
not
tens, hundreds, thousands?
Health Watch report will give me a better idea, plus the walk round will corroborate those figures to a certain degree.
So, and the last point is, you know, the problems at the moment with the social care system, is that a major contributory factor, would you say? Don't you know that?
In what aspect?
Well, sort of releasing people out of hospital or mental facilities that perhaps can't cope and are losing their homes.
I think that there are comorbidities in homelessness, of drug dependency, alcohol dependency, mental health issues, physical complaints. But it's not usually the older generation in terms of health problems, but certainly those pathologies that exist within homeless people themselves. There's a high incidence again of dependency, mental health problems. But yeah, thank you. No doubt that will be emergent.
It's got a big topic, isn't it?
Yeah, that's huge. So that's one theme. Another theme is sort of financial inability of re-enablement. You know, we're looking at housing associations now that are looking for extended deposits, gone beyond the first month. No doubt they're not the kind of clients they want anyway. I think that's fair to say, being diplomatic.
Yeah.
So there is that issue. There's also provision of resources within the district. That's going to be another theme, current and future. Connected services as well, about people talking to each other, what we do with community law, what we do as a council with CAB, etc. Roles, responsibility and referral, and lastly policy. So it's a big piece of work, Chairman. Just other legwork at the moment.
Good. 1 minute. I think we said originally we'd really expected to come back in April. Do you think realistically, because of the scope of work and the amount of depth you've got to get into, and also the national picture, feels like it's changing? Is this kind of like, do you think, you want to aim more for June now? We restructured the deadline?
I think it's going to be at least June.
Okay, yeah. That's completely reasonable. I think any of us taking on that project would have a lot to get our heads around. So if we can have you come back again in April, give us another a verbal, or even a short, one-page document. In fact, can we have a one-page document in April, please? That'll be
One-pager. It's got to be English.
Sorry?
A one-pager. It's got to be English.
I don't understand. We'll expect it to be submitted in English language. Good, one-pager for April, then we'll test the progress thereafter. So thank you very much. So I'll put them.
If I may comment, Chairman, part of Councillor Pritchard's presentation then reminded me of a category where people have intentionally made themselves homeless, or not intentionally, but there is that area where they have intentionally made themselves homeless, and they get onto a list, and I think Councillor Pritchard and I know of a case where, and because they don't meet the correct criteria that has been laid down, and it's almost as if somebody from some obscure country walking into an area would have more rights than they. And it's almost a mental problem that they have intentionally made themselves homeless, and then they can't. It's interesting what Councillor Pritchard said about futures DDH, extending the lead time, the repayment time, or lowering. DDH Futures took 2 people out of CAB Daventry and decided to do the work themselves. However, in reality, the CAB discussed it with Dave. I declare that I'm on the trustee board of CAB, but the problem being that Futures ostensibly seem only to be addressing the problems regarding payment of rent, not looking into the other aspects of child abuse and marital breakdowns, etc., etc. Sorry, Chairman, just an aside, as it were.
Yeah, I think, Councillor Pritchard, I mean, it's a conflation of issues, and I mean, those comorbidities play a significant role in this, and I think that's it. As we know, we can't go into any detail, but of course you have a live case on the ward, which I think is probably also giving you some extra insight into this topic, and I think probably in that respect, because of what you're having to deal with, you're pretty closer than any of us to a live issue, which can help inform the issue and the challenges, etc. Good. Okay. Well, let's. But thank you for that. We'll have a one-pager back in April. So please make sure it's to Wendy in due course. Just on that, by the way, you know, emails coming around. We're all kind of obsessed. For me, actually, as a chair, the best way, actually, often to speak to me is by telephone, and that'd be my kind of preference of communication. Not least because these projects are, by their very nature, they kind of feel like they're getting more complicated, and I would much rather have a cup of coffee and sit down and discuss them, rather than get into stuff on email in particular. So that's my call for buying as well. Now, let's move on to number 22, and this is a classic case. This started off as a street scene, public realm topic. Now I've been out on this one and done some field work. Councillor Paul and I were meant to go out ourselves actually, but we had some diary challenges at the last minute, Councillor Paul. But we'll reschedule accordingly. But in any event, I've been out with Steve Welton for one's sake. And we spent a couple of hours also with Councillor Eden, walking around the ward, this ward in particular, to kind of use it as an exemplar of some of the challenges for the kind of street scene, and really actually going around examining what we see as some of the kind of tidiness issues, the buildings, the street furniture, all those things that make us feel good about the town, and play a role in the Love Daventry branding. And from we also actually in our field work, we actually took on we tracked down the Amy contractor as well, and that was quite interesting testimony there about of course it's unverified about his perceptions of things and about the equipment they use and the rounds, and and I think if you can kind of extrapolate that across the district, you probably see some of the challenges we're facing. And actually what really struck me from that initial piece of work was how much of the landscape and the cleanliness and tidiness issues actually come back to the contractor, Amy. And again, you've seen that exemplified this evening. So there's some more exploration to be done there. But where I didn't want to actually get to with this project is back where I thought it was in the first place, which was a lot of it is around the environmental contractor. But I think from the walk around the town, actually a lot of it is, if you take like the landscaping areas where we most have issues, or even, here's one thing that I found astonishing in its simplicity and ridiculousness, is they were saying they don't, and this is a bit of a Councillor Randall interview session we did, don't have basic shovels and things like that to just kind of help them to tidy up the streets.
Well, you have a man that walks around the town with a barrow, with a broom on it and a shovel and a little hand picky jobby poo. And I don't care if this is recorded or not, but he's...
Well, it is recorded, it's recorded.
Yes, well, he spends more time talking than actually doing the job, and he will walk round, or the vehicle will drive up the road, sweeping, or drive up the pavement, sweeping the pavement, but there is a corner that is just driven by that is full of rubbish. He will not get off that vehicle, use a shovel and clear that corner. So I totally agree with you with that one.
But I think that
the basic problem we're having in Daventry and any other town, village, road, byway in this country is that we are a filthy nation. You know, you travel abroad, I travel extensively around Europe, I don't see half of the problems that I do here. If you go to Junction 18, you come off the motorway at Junction 18, people have been on that motorway, look at the verge. It is a sea of rubbish where people are throwing it out. So I agree that the contractor, but I also agree that we need to do something.
Yes, we do.
It goes beyond just cleanliness.
Yes, it does. But I think that's the point, because I mean, I'll come to you.
I'm happy to feed into your.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but there are other issues as well. So, for instance, litter's probably a big part of it, because basically, you know, it's something you can keep in control of where you can. It kind of makes you feel better about the place, and it plays straight to the contractor because. And then we went around some of the other parts of the town, and we chose that because obviously it's the most built-up area. It's kind of has a lot of footfall. It's kind of iconic in terms of the town. And actually what we also found is you go around some of the back areas of the shops, very poorly maintained as well, and even there was a story about somebody had given us some photographic evidence of a person foraging bins as well. So you've got a whole range of different...
Happy to supply those photos.
Exactly, yeah, so you're pretty aware as well. And I think Councillor and I were particularly flabbergasted at some of the areas where we don't necessarily go into all the time. There was the councillor walking around, and I think the root cause is definitely got to be some of that contractor issues. Let's go to Councillor French.
Two quick issues. One, the A14 is a disgrace, but that's Highways England, not our contractors, so they perhaps need to kick up the whatever. I have been getting... My ward includes the A508, and I'm getting an increasing number of complaints from parish councils and constituents, I suppose now, for the state of the verges. And when you come to Leicester, because obviously I drive up there a lot, it gets suddenly cleaner.
Yes. Going to Warwickshire.
Yeah, well, I do that as well, and it does get cleaner. Yeah. So I don't quite understand why they can do something and we can't, but I'm not sure it's all down to our contractors' inabilities. I did tell one of my constituents that some education needs to be done in the schools and in the various other places where you get young people, because no end of stuff when I lived in Stratton, you know, we just happened to be so far from the McDonald's place that it was always full of McDonald's litter, because people just open the window and throw it out because they can't see houses.
It was eating time.
Yeah. Kingsthorpe to Stratton, and then throw it out between us and Creek.
Yeah. So very peculiar about people who go to McDonald's and
Chairman, may I ask a question? If I can address it to Tony as well, we have a number of employees in the building. Something I thought of the other day when I couldn't make the appointment with yourself. Do you have such a thing as a gripe sheet? Now, various employees travel to this building. They must pass a heap of rubbish, a turned over bin or whatever.
I raised this on my walk around, so I said, particularly, and you've heard me say this, all of us as councillors and officers will take certain routes, particularly in the town, and you'll see things day in, day out, and what happens? You sometimes just switch off and think it's unmanageable, or...
Can we have a gripe sheet, you know, for the staff, if the staff see, you know, a burnt out car on a roundabout, or, you know, put it, I don't know.
But isn't that purely a reporting mechanism, which is like...
Well, it is a reporting mechanism, but, you know, we've got 100 odd people, you know, coming to this building that are ostensibly our eyes, and it comes down to that one word again, perception. And we're talking about Love Daventry. The perception that I get when I walk into the front entrance of this building, who loves this building? Nobody.
I think on that positive note, we'll move on. I mean, that's obviously a work in progress. I think on that one, I will also take Councillor Pritchard's path, and I'll do a one-page in April, because I think this will be it's kind of like a couple of moving targets on there. I think the biggest problem is, I think a lot of it is in terms of the kind of cleanliness, etc., day-to-day stuff is aiming.
And conservation area.
And just basic general maintenance, when the trees start growing, etc. And actually some of it's quite fundamental in terms of the way the landscape is managed. And one of the things I would like to do is get some time with the new landscape manager as well. Okay, so that's
the reason why I asked for the gentleman for the low maintenance areas in Rugby.
Yeah, good idea. But and I think some of that we'll know will. The problem is with some of these projects, you get the feeling that they're going to come to the same conclusion as we do in Scrutiny in terms of the corporate plan, which is the contractor is the problem for a lot of it, and we know that if we get on top of that, a lot of the.
So do we see the new? I presume what will be the new contractor will be a panacea for all our ills.
I bet it won't be, but
we need to manage that expectation. Don't
exactly.
we?
Yeah, but. I certainly think we have the opportunity to look at it afresh.
I also spoke at the SMT portfolio holders meeting, and some people looked at me as if I'd just pulled out a piece of cheese, was to put a couple of big thermometers in town with the value of how much it is costing to street clean. Yeah? And it's a visual. You walk into Waitrose, bloody hell, excuse me, Wendy, it's £100,000 to clean the streets.
That's plausible. Tony, do you have a final comment?
Just really in response to Councillor Freshman's comment, is that there's a report going to Strategy Group this week, which sets out the options for the new environmental services.
Only 2 days to wait for
the member development session on the 15th.
Yes.
I can't remember the company. Are they the preferred bidder then?
Subject to Strategy Group.
Well, I presume they are, because they won't be coming, would they?
Yeah.
Why is it so last minute? The arrangement.
I don't know. I'm not been
Commercial sensitivity.
No, the meeting's next week.
Yeah, but why is it at the last minute?
Yeah.
You don't want to put it in your public papers that you're inviting another along to look at when you've got bids out to look at the business.
We're not. Sorry, Chairman. We're not actually at a bid stage. The paper to Strategy Group is looking at options for procuring a service.
Good.
You know what I mean?
Not the specification.
No.
Okay, good. Thank you. So, I mean, this is a moving feast. Right, let's move on. Thank you for that and the inputs on that, of course. So we'll be at strategy. Then we've got. That was assignment 22. Then we're on to implementation activity, which actually means we go back to Tony on this one to give us an update.
Yes, Chairman. First one is 7A off the agenda, which is assignment 10, the Rural Economic Strategy, Rural Economic Goals Strategy Task Annual Report. So that's in the papers, the action plan there. Yep. 3 recommendations came from that task panel. 3 were accepted by Council. One is shown as being delivered, albeit it's ongoing day-to-day business, which is recommendation 2. The other 2 are in various stages of progress. Recommendation 1, which is around a tourism forum. Some initial contacts have been made, not been terribly successful in engaging businesses, but we're going to push that further. So still hopeful we can put something in place there.
Why is that changed totally?
I don't know. I wasn't involved in the particular piece of work, but I think those who were are saying that they're not sort of saying, well, that's it, we're not going to do it anymore, we're going to look wider, maybe we didn't go to the right businesses. There's another piece of work, the second part of the action there in recommendation 1 is around linking into the Northamptonshire Surprise project. which is about identifying local attractions and some work there. And certainly we are involved in that project, so that may give us a better insight.
Is it the case with some of these initiatives sometimes they're a bit too tricky to get all the right stakeholders involved and there isn't much focus on it?
Well,
This is really important, isn't it?
if I may, Chairman, tourism comes under my portfolio. We have a strategic economic development officer at this moment in time who has gone out to parishes and got information, and her and Becky are working extremely well together. I've also gone out to parishes to highlight various places, farm shops, etc., etc. Purely and simply, and at a meeting yesterday morning with Becky and Claire Cowland, we spoke about Daventry almost being an epicentre, or it could be, for tourism. If you take the historic houses, etc., and these many billions of pounds that are spent on tourism, and it's an area that Claire and I are looking at, because of those billions of pounds, let's have them in our district. I went to the new opening of the Holiday Inn at Floor, and if you want anybody to stay locally, send them to the Holiday Inn at Floor. Absolutely incredible regeneration. It cost them more in regeneration than it did to buy the place. But that is the way to go, and more of the same. Hopefully the hotel in Daventry will mimic what they've done as well.
Good, thank you. Let's think of that. Let's move back to Tony.
So the third recommendation, which is about facilities, rural business hubs, a survey is going to be commencing shortly, is the update on that. So still working to the target date of July 17th.
I think that's an excellent idea. I think Barry come up with it. Excellent idea, provided that you can get a telephone signal or broadband. But no, I think it does work, particularly if some of the villages can trust that, if that makes sense.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, moving on then, 7B, which is assignment 16. There isn't a paper for this in the attempt to save at least part of a tree. The update is, as was presented last time, that the issues around the customer satisfaction measure will be considered as part of the corporate strategic plan. That in itself is going to strategy group later this week.
Good.
And then on to council.
And
7C.
yeah, please.
Which is the empty commercial property action plan. There is a report to strategy group again Thursday this week. It's the 9th of February, not 16th as it says on the agenda.
Yeah. Changed, didn't it, of course?
Yeah.
And that was Councillor Pritchard's.
Yeah, and the 4 recommendations which left S&I are being offered for, and 2 are word for word being proposed for strategy group, and there's some change in the other 2. So all 4 recommendations will be considered by the strategy group.
And can I, before you do comment, sorry?
Do we have much commercial empty property at the moment? Isn't it 99% full?
That's our own commercial.
Oh, sorry.
This was wider than...
Sorry.
Yeah.
But for the avoidance of any doubt, bearing in mind the conversation we had earlier, that we have a mechanism there where, as a matter of courtesy, that before it goes comes to me to review before it goes, but of course it's only a review point. and basically it's not necessarily meant to leave here and end up there in exactly the same state. We're only a recommendation panel. Obviously it goes around and they have a look at it. They being obviously portfolio orders that are in scope and also the management team, and they give us that gets. But of course, if you wanted to, if you weren't happy with anything that you saw on the paper, you could obviously speak about it, or you could strategy. We've had those debates before, but generally they kept, the point is on all this, it's meant to be in the spirit of which it was intended when it left here, but obviously it's not necessarily word for word. But if you want to see it in action and follow through, then obviously be a strategy. Okay, Councillor Paul.
No, Councillor Frenchman has just said that we're up to 99% occupancy with our commercial property. There is a shortage of commercial property locally of a particular size, 5,000 square feet thereabouts, and a number of our local companies are wanting to increase their size, and they're struggling at the moment to find premise, which is, but they're all keen to stay in Daventry. But some of the papers are coming through, as Tony said, to strategy on Thursday, so that's good news.
Interesting evening. Thank you very much. Let's move on. Number 8. We're on the 1-year post-implementation reviews. Now this, it's very fair to say this is my least favourite scrutiny agenda to put together.
Excuse me, Chairman?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. We're going to talk about it shortly anyway, so it's good job we go. Although
We'll get over the next bit quicker.
Thank you very much, Colin, as always. So, the point that was making is this. I remember when we discussed these a while back that this was going to be a bit of a glut on the agenda. Give us a bit of a challenge, and I think at the time I remember saying, look, this is going to be a very simple task. I think in reality it's probably not as simple as we thought it might be, for one reason or another, but obviously each particular assignment will have its own merits. So let's kick off with your assignment 5, and you're going to give us a quick update, actually, Councillor Richard.
Yeah, it was interesting to see that I think it's on the appendix, isn't it? I've got individual sheets, but it's within the document itself, page.
There aren't many appendices in this one, actually, so...
No, I think I'll print it off then.
Yeah.
This is the information. I've done nothing, very little to do with this other than collate information, because that was my own purpose. It predated me. In fact, 2014, is that right?
Yeah, this was on a Councillor Randall's. I mean, that's the point, because basically what happens is they come through, they take ages to do, and then we basically have a set of recommendations. It goes through council, blah, 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 blah. It's 1 year post-implementation. Okay. So you can have quite a long cycle time. And bearing in mind this one, I can't remember the exact date it was due up. I think it was... Anyway, whenever it was, but it's also due for review before that. It feels like it's a long process, actually.
I'd just like thanks to Tony, because he was sort of managed to shape this in terms of responses and actually populated these recommendations and put this together, because a lot of it is operational, a lot of it is staff training, a lot of it is day-to-day procedure, which I have insight into. But if we look through the recommendations, do you really want to read them all out, or do you want to say they're compliant?
Just 1 second, actually, while I just deal with the administrative side of this. So, that's right, yes we did, of course. Yeah. So, just, of course, because of the deadlines and stuff, so Tony, what's the, because on this one, I mean, with Councillor Frenchman's earlier, I think that warrants a proper discussion because it's a first time round. On this one, we've got this kind of paper coming through here. How do you think we should best manage it?
I think if you're happy, Chairman, and the committee are happy to accept it, then given it's a post-implementation review, I think you'd be happy to deal with it then.
And it was meant to be quite light touch anyway. We were never meant to get bogged down in this for months and endless points of discussion. So, okay, in that case, talk us through it, and then we'll take it as is. Thank you. I'm quite keen to cut through these bits to get through fast.
Apologies because it was mine. I sent it late and I asked for your comments late, so apologies.
And also,
I think I was like
I think also the templates were a great start with as well. And I think this goes back to my point. I mean, if it's also about contact, please just give me. I hate emails, right? Obvious. We all hate emails. I have hundreds of damn things.
Can you let me have your mobile?
Just let's speak on the phone.
Yeah, actually, can you let me have your number?
Please.
You email me.
No. I will write it down for you after the meeting. Okay, thank you.
So this
Right, talk us through
this assignment review of written formal communication with service users in terms of clarity, tone and factual correctness. There are a number of recommendations. Recommendation 1, the People's Panel becomes involved in an annual review of the Council's printed and online communications in the form of an annual user survey. There is evidence that suggests it's taking place. Effectiveness, yes. Implemented, yes. Is that okay in terms of brevity?
It's certainly got brevity. Yes, because actually the main point is it was the evidence of the implementation. I think what we have to do is, were you satisfied as a member of this scrutiny committee undertaking this review assessment that these things had been implemented as per the way they've described?
Yes.
Good. Okay, fine. Any questions, anybody?
No. Just number 5 hasn't got.
Number 5. What's with number 5?
Tony, would you mind? The council writes to the government to invite comment onto how it expects councils to communicate housing benefit and council tax awards having regard to gov.uk style guidance. Sorry.
And I think there is evidence that it was implemented because we did write.
That's fine, then, isn't it? We've got evidence of the letter.
Yeah, there's a record on our files. In terms of being effective, well, I would suggest, I mean, it's for you as a committee to judge, but my suggestion is that it's not been effective because it wasn't...
Nothing changed.
Well, nothing came back. We didn't get a...
Didn't even get a response. No. Now, therein lies an interesting point, isn't it? Because this is about ultimately the auditability of the recommendations and the implementation. And the implemented, yes, because you either did it or you didn't. But the effectiveness is a lot more difficult to measure because, for a start, I was thinking this when I was doing my own review actually. How do you assess the effectiveness? And because there's no framework for it, there's no criteria. Well, you'll know this as academic and marking and so on. There's no point scoring system. One of the things I thought on this one is that actually, I don't actually think the effectiveness column is helpful.
I was going to come to
you were going to come to that as well. Well, that's good with it. So, what's your thoughts on that, Councillor Frenchman?
Well, when I was doing mine, if I come on to mine, that they...
Okay, we'll come on to yours and we'll take that consideration.
Because it's the same difference.
Yeah.
Because mine is about a review of procurement procedure. So I went to see Simon Bowers, who looks after that, and I said, have you implemented these? He said, yes.
Yes.
I said, how have you implemented them? He said they've been the guidelines in the panel, task panel, have been incorporated into the policy. So everybody now undertaking procurement looks at the policy and follows those guidelines.
Yeah.
I can't prove they do.
No, you can't, no.
So I don't know how effective they are, but I can prove they've done it.
Well, no, it's two different things then, because even if you could prove they did them, it doesn't mean the measure is effective.
Well, they wouldn't have, I guess, because it got that far, everybody thought it was an effective idea, and they put that idea into the procurement policy.
Yeah.
So the procurement policy is now enhanced by the ideas that were in the task panel report, and they are there for everybody to see. But what you can't say is how do they work and are they taken notice of? Because if you're reading it, you might willfully or accidentally ignore some of it.
Yeah, it becomes it's almost a philosophical question. It's interesting because...
So what the point I was getting to, which is why I said to Wendy, I think when she said, could I fill in a report? I said, well, I couldn't fill in your...
That's right, that was the feedback.
Because I was getting confused as to what is. So
yeah.
I can tell you that it's been implemented. I can tell you that there's evidence of that because it's in the policy.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you how effective it was because I've no idea.
Well, that's a good point, isn't it? Because effectiveness might be, is it effective in meeting the objectives we originally looked at? Is it effective in the way? Has it been implemented effectively? I think, which is really interesting, isn't it? Because actually, you'd expect this as scrutiny, as we've looked at this in a bit more detail, and we've said unless there's a more robust framework, then it's very difficult to actually do this piece of work.
Is it our job to? It's our job to find problems and produce solutions to those problems, which is what a task panel does.
Yeah.
And it's then officers' usually responsibility to incorporate them into whatever. But nobody can say how effective it is because you've got nothing to compare it to. You could say, well, I looked at it before it were implemented, but it doesn't really change your behaviours.
Yeah, it's true. Become before and after, etc. Should we? I mean,
that's effectiveness. Has behaviour has
behaviour changed?
Have things improved?
Yeah.
And they just change because, for instance, with this one, I didn't know, but there's a corporate procurement and efficiencies working group that meets every month to update things. So actually, if I went back to look at it in a year's time, it may have evolved still further.
Yeah.
Along the same lines or along a different line.
And I'll come to you in a second, Kaz Pritchard. But the other thing that concerns me is it's that thing, isn't it? You're not standing in the same stream of water twice because things, like you say, things have evolved. I think you were, I can't remember if you were on the committee at the time or not, Kaz Pritchard, but I was concerned when we agreed this. I mean, I think I raised that point that this would be problematic to do because, in a way, what starts to happen is if you start to think a bit more critically, you end up with a new task assessment.
Yes.
Task panel.
I had to stop myself sort of going into it in any great detail because otherwise it creates an awful lot of extra work.
Yeah.
Both for us and the officers.
For everybody, yeah. And I suppose you've got to, if we take a step back and say, apart from us ticking it off, literally becoming a tick box exercise, we have done it, we've seen it through the whole cycle, we've got this lovely big spreadsheet. I guess the real test is, does anybody actually take any notice of this? Because once it gets to this committee, this document finishes, doesn't go any further, does it? Stops, it's the end of the line.
Well, it doesn't, because if it's not been implemented or it's not been effective, we would then start
we can discuss it and say, but we'd still have the conversation, do we want to do anything about it? And I think partly that'll be mediated by the say, well, actually, we're at capacity, we've all got projects on the go. Simply becomes a resource issue and say, I don't want to handle 14 projects. Do you want to make a comment, Tony?
Well, yeah, I mean, just a couple of observations, really. I mean, if we think back to when, I mean, the post-implementation review has been part of S&I for longer than any of us have been involved with the committee, I think.
Has it really?
Perhaps with the exception of when David said. But it hasn't always been followed, and I think it was a discipline that you brought in as the chairman to get back on track with this. And in my understanding, what I think you were trying to achieve was to say, so let's go back a step. In terms of the process, task panel meets, task panel comes up with some recommendations, discussed by this committee, recommendations then go on to council. Those are then addressed by strategy group and they're either agreed or otherwise, but usually there are some actions that are accepted by council which started life in the S&I task panel. We then report, as we've just done on the previous section of the agenda, I will give you an update on delivery of actions from the action plan. So you've been told on a regular basis that things are happening.
Yeah.
It is a chance to, the post-implementation review is a chance to say, well, okay, we've got to the end of this piece of work, let's look back. Is there evidence it's been implemented? Now, you've already been provided with evidence along the way.
Yeah.
You've been provided with a note that says things have been done. So it's how far you want to test that in terms of implementation.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the effectiveness, then it's a judgment, clearly. And I guess you need to go back to what the task panel was getting at. So whoever, and it's difficult when you have change of personnel leading the
Back
task.
to the original objective.
Yeah. What were you trying to achieve? Do you think this has made a difference?
Yes.
And I think it needs to be a fairly rough and ready judgment of that. And yes, you can take views of officers. You might want to look further, but the danger is you set off in another task panel in itself,
yes.
or we continually go round in a circle on this. So I think that certainly when you and I spoke about this, the view was that once the post-implementation review is undertaken and reported here, that's the end.
That's the end.
However, that review might suggest that there's another task panel to kick
That's the
off.
end of that cycle, but it might kick off a new one.
Yeah, so it would be a new task panel looking at an element of
particular angle.
Yeah. So I think you presented with papers that have been collated in various forms by officers and members to come here and really as a committee you need to just make a judgment on it.
Yes.
And I would, sorry if it just go on. What I suggest is if you feel issues are not effective or things haven't been implemented, the evidence isn't there that they've been implemented, that one way of bringing that back would be through your annual report to council. So there is a way of alerting it as an alternative to kicking off another task plan.
Could be, basically you track it through the cycle and say these are things that we perhaps haven't seen as, because that's even in terms of the way you report it on the big master grid. Then you start getting to the point, the running work program, you get to the point and say you would almost have fractions like 4 out of 5 were implemented a year later. So on this one, I think that's the point, they've all been implemented, but they're not all effective. You'd end up with 2 ratios almost.
But then, if I may, if we use that as an example, where 5 recommendations, 5 there's evidence that all 5 were implemented. Officers' views are that they have been effective. There will be to varying degrees. With the exception of the last one, and we're saying, well, no, that's not been effective because what we were trying to get was the government to change the way they use language in their forms, and nothing has come from that. So we say that's not been effective, but I suggest there's very little as a committee you can
as
do
we
about
can do because it's beyond our
So
control.
you just accept that's
So on that one, you wouldn't even raise that because you've got 5 recommendations, so 5 items have been implemented, but 4 are effective. 1's not effective with the next one. Okay, I'll come back to you maybe in a second, Tony. Councillor Pritchard.
I'm not sure I'm going to help. My mind's all meandered off into chasing tail kind of scenario. I don't think it will help, and you're probably going to say it won't, but in terms of effectiveness, coming across when recommendations are put in front of perhaps NHS predominantly with, what from that, there's an understanding that it's 3-tier. One thing is that has operational policy or process been maintained? And the second one is, has operational policy been modified and approached different? And there's a third sort of tier to try and gauge or measure some kind of effectiveness of what you've done. And I'm not sure that even does that. Really.
How would you measure it?
Exactly. So I'm going to shut up.
But there are
contribution. Thank you.
different task panels will have a different use for this. So the one I did here, yes, it's been implemented, but I can't tell you how effective it is because it's now policy. But on the rural one I did, that you just reported, Tony, there are actually things that need doing and that you can almost measure. So if there's a tourism forum, how many members are there? How are we recruiting people? So you can say, has that been effective or not?
But ultimately it still comes down to a judgment, and
yes,
I guess it's the insight, the familiarity, the people. You've got all the record, the notes there. That's in the pack anyway. I think for me, this has been really interesting, hasn't it? It's raised some quite fundamental questions about how we view these things when we assess them, etc. And we go back. So, as kind of perhaps my perception was, this wasn't going to be easy. That's without overcomplicating it. But the question is there merit in having an effectiveness column, Or should we actually just get rid of the column completely? I mean, notwithstanding some of Tony's contribution there. We're not here to have an easy life, clearly, but if it's been, I mean, even with the word implemented, you could say, yeah, well, that has been implemented, but you may make a comment about it. Keep it as simple as that, perhaps. Because I kind of feel when you start putting yes and no's in cells, and you kind of start, if something's got a no in it, which you feel like it should be a yes, because you want yeses, what happens next?
Perhaps the effectiveness should be substituted for comment.
That kind of feels like it. That kind of feels right to me, actually. What do you reckon, Councillor Pritchard?
And obviously, well, I mean, if it's,
Colin, you have to.
I was just say, if it's been implemented and we are happy with it, having spoken to whoever, there's no real comment to make, is there?
No.
But if there's something, even the one that on yours, Jason, that's no, you've really got no comment to say because you can't do anything about it anyway.
Yeah.
But when we come to do whatever, and it's perhaps something an officer's done, you say, well, actually, no, I think this is because, or it's been enhanced by, or whatever.
Yeah, it may well simply be that effectiveness is the wrong word in terms of what we. It's because I think you always have to be real about what we can achieve, actually, as well. And that's not just without taking up masses of everybody's time on something you decided years ago. We do have to be continuously improving.
Could I say that we may find something on the training that helps with this?
Yeah, we could do, actually. It's a good point, actually. Can we, if we can have that forum there? I know it's not our session, we're attending somebody else's session, but it's certainly good to raise that. What should we do for today? Should we leave it as it is, the form, or should we change it and inject a new form into it which changes the word to comments? Because we've still got a bit of work to do on this one as well. We can bring these home.
Well, I'd leave it because these have been done like this now, haven't they? But
well,
for the next implementation, post-implementation, then.
But I mean, it's as simple as me basically editing the spreadsheet, the document, and sending it back to Wendy and saying, this is the new template, as simple as that. Yeah. You do that? Yeah. Councillor Pritchard, I think you probably... Yeah, we'll do that. These things aren't meant to be this complicated.
Sorry, Tim, can I just be clear what you're doing with the ones that are in front of you?
Yes, the ones that we've got, we'll treat them with the template they're on.
Right.
But any new templates coming forward will be populated on the new template, which I'll send to Wendy. Which is very simply, we'll change the word effectiveness, for comments, and see what trick that gets us. See what pickle that gets us.
So you should say implemented, but the comments should be at the end.
Yeah, actually I think it should be switched around. So implemented should be the column before evidence of implementation. Then it should be evidence of implementation. Then it should be comments.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see how we get on.
Let's make it difficult.
Great comments. So. And the good thing is, this is our document. This doesn't have to go around council for authority around it. We'll amend it. All right, Wendy? Thank you. I'll send you a new one. That's the third version of this. Where's Councillor Long when you need him? Right. So I think on number 5, Councillor Pritchard will say that is complete. Good. Thank you. Well done. So complete. Take that off the list. Right, the next one on the list is number 6, which is not going to be coming forward. So I'm going to have to roll these onto the next one. Anything else we'll roll on. Councillor Frenchman, over to you for number 11, please.
Well, as I was just saying, I interviewed, or I had a discussion with Simon Bowers, who looks after this particular area. He told me and that the policy had been adjusted to take into account the recommendations, whatever the letters were, I can't remember, A to Z or something, and they've been implemented into policy. Everyone has access to the policy who is responsible for the procurement side, so it follows that they are taking they are taking notice of them. I can't prove how effective they are, which is the point I was making earlier. So the policy of Daventry District Council on procurement now includes all the items that are on the report.
Right, okay, because actually what you were saying now, I mean, the other thing, there's two things there. I know we've had the effectiveness discussion, but it's effectiveness of the process and effectiveness of the outcome. What was your intended objective and outcome? So let's come and look at this one. So for number one, that the aspects noted within the report which relate to procurement were considered in the preparation of the corporate procurement strategy for 2018 and procurement toolkit. When you put here, the highlighted aspects have been embedded in the guidance and policy regarding procurement, and so and so on. Are now automatically part of the process. There is continuous review and update through the corporate procurement effectiveness work group, which is a good thing. And he was saying they have been used in procurement, but your point is you don't really know if they really are embedded and if they're being...
They are embedded, I don't know whether they're being used.
What's the difference? It's probably too late for that conversation, but you
just because you get a piece of paper that says do this, this, this and this and this, doesn't mean you do them all.
So when do you know when something's been embedded? It was surely embedded is it's common practice.
Well, no, it's embedded in the policy, so it is part of the policy that the officers should follow. You can't. It's like you can take a horse to water, or you can lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink. So just because there is a number of issues in the not issues, a number of guidelines in the policy, I can't guarantee that every time an officer uses those guidelines to do whatever it is they're doing, that they're following every single one of them.
No, and then it becomes an audit in actual fact, because then you'd start interviewing people and say, tell me how you follow.
Well, I could have gone on further and said to Simon, can I interview somebody who was doing it, and then...
But that's not really, and you could, and I think that's the limitation of this, isn't it? Because we never intended to get that deep into the process.
I think, as far as we're concerned, on this committee, the evidence that is in the policy it should be enough.
Yeah, exactly. I think
because it's now there forever, until or unless somebody changes their mind somewhere further down the line.
And actually, I think you have to have a limitation to our scope of interference, really, and you have to say, well, look, if it's in the policy, it's in the processes. We have to take that as read.
Yeah, that's why I was getting confused when I was talking to you and Wendy about actually filling this in. Yeah. And I said I couldn't do the original form because I couldn't prove anything.
No. But the form itself wasn't noticed, but the form itself was different.
With respect to Tony, when I speak to Simon and you, I expect you're telling us the truth all the time. I don't know that you are. I just expect it. And it's not a slight on you.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
there are people who are less scrupulous, shall we say. Without getting into, So what I mean is, I took at face value what Simon was telling me.
I'm sure. Yeah, I've got a whole PhD going on now. Really. So
I didn't mean this as a slight, but I think you understand what I'm.
Well, in a way, actually, I mean, seriously, I mean, this is the meaning for truth, really, isn't it? That's ultimately the scrutiny,
or trust as well.
Trust, and that's kind of what I think it starts to become an audit, in actual fact. Okay, good. So let's amend it as we described. But in terms of the actual, what you're saying is here that in terms of the number 11, yes and yes to those two items. Good, it's a good job you didn't have a longer one to deal with.
It's complete.
Yes.
Thank you, Wendy.
I think, Chairman, just made an observation about sort of trust of officers. I don't think there is any evidence to suggest that there's reason not to trust officers.
No.
And there are audit processes in place.
Of course. Yeah, exactly.
So that would pick up any issues.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, and that's kind of the point I'm making, really. And I think when we say trust, we don't mean anything about mistrust. It's like basically, look, you can only take it so far. Saying, look, we trust and we have faith in the process as running. And like you say, we don't want to become auditors in this process because that's already audited by another party. Good, but point well made and well understood. I think we all understand where we are. Good. So then we're on to hang on. Are we not on to manual? Let's go back to the agenda. So we've got the next one is it is me assignment 12. Good. Before we go on to mine, actually, I'm just going to flip again. I'm going to take assignment 13, so that needs to come back, and assignment 7, I'm going to come back, so that needs to be allocated. So on number 12, you can see, I thought it was going pretty well on this until I got to the third item, where I said I basically gave a bit of description, which we'll come to in a second. But actually, on number 6, on that one, I had a new variation, that permutation of this theme, and I said I thought it was too early to conclude that one because the cycle hadn't run its course yet since. But what I've done in the way I put it together, so if you look at recommendation number 1, I also put some anonymised verbatim comments in as well to highlight some of the feedback, and they were supporting the position that it had been implemented. And again, that goes back to our point, I didn't get a response from every portfolio holder, and you also have to make in some judgment, and again, without going to an absolute incredible depth, I basically take it as read that they were telling me the truth and they had no reason not to. So that was why I came with yes for those two. The third one was interesting, so I got some verbatim comment, but in this area you might start to say, well, were things conflicting, was it very clear, etc. So basically I put yes for that, both of those, but some extra additional comments as well, and really going back to the reason why we put various systems in place. I thought number 4 was an interesting one because if you look here, all members should have access to the corporate plan, and it says in the second column, the evidence of the implementation, all members have access to the corporate plan for requesting it, so that was the fact they could be requested. There's no denial of access. And also, they have the opportunity to come to this meeting where we go through the corporate plan that is in the agenda that's circulated, and they can ask questions in the standing items section which we have. So I think that's all evidence. However, I didn't think that was fully implemented, because in actual fact, and again I'm kind of taking a half measure there, because it should be circulated to members at the end of each quarter, so outbound, and I haven't seen full evidence of that happening in actual fact. So what do you say, what happens next? You simply say, well, it's noted, or we go back to Tony. Tony, well, actually, that's a good point. What do you think? What is the best? I don't want to kick off a new panel on this one, but I don't think that's been faithfully implemented as read. That one specifically.
Well, I think minute that was part of this.
Yeah, I think we'll do that as a good point, actually. Yeah. So, Wendy, can we minute that? So. It was, however you best put that, but from the 1-year implementation for the review of corporate strategic plan, it was noted that the quarterly corporate plan had not been consistently circulated to members. Yeah. So
consistently? Automatically?
Well, consistently, because it has been sometimes.
Has it? Yeah. I've never seen it.
I'm sure I've seen it a couple of times. I had a search back, and I also did I think it was search back for the last 3 or 6 months, and I couldn't find it.
But you've had it recently because it's been emailed to us as members of the Scrutiny Committee.
As members of Scrutiny, yeah, but widely. But I think that's the point, isn't it? And the way I did this is I looked back at my yes. So let's just I haven't had any recently. Yeah.
It's not a difficult thing to do, is it?
Not really.
Just send it to everybody.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it's not happening if that indeed is the case. I think if it gets minuted here, then
we just follow up on that. I don't know. It's not a huge thing because there are multiple opportunities, but I've also got those comments out from Julie as well.
Some of the newer members, for instance, probably might not even know about it because they've not been told about it.
Yeah, it's true actually.
Well detected, Chairman.
Sorry.
Well detected. Well brought out of all of this. That that's a recommendation that this should have been happening.
Yeah, thank you. That's the benefit of doing this, I suppose. Actually, it is part of the process. Thank you. You've got it in front of you, so I won't go into massive detail as well, but you can see there's obviously comments on the other aspects as well. And I think what I would like to draw to our attention, and again this particularly plays into the AME contract, is the independent verification. I suppose on that one, I don't know if I have to declare an interest. Obviously, I work for an independent verification company, which is day in, day out. But obviously, it kind of struck me that one of the biggest fundamental issues we had was trusting the data. We don't always trust the data and the process around it. That was back to the conversation we had earlier. And I would say therefore that hadn't been fully implemented either, and I think that also needs to be noted. But obviously, the document itself notes that, but I think it needs further noting. And I think actually, Tony in particular, this will be, what mechanisms are built into the new contract to make sure they do seek and pay for themselves. In actual fact, I'd recommend independent verification of this kind of corporate data, particularly non-financial data, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I think a minute to that effect will help, but there's opportunities through the report to strategy group tomorrow, and there'll be other opportunities as that work is being
yes, absolutely. So and that's the thing with this, because unless we reignite a new project, this is the end of the line apart from anything that's recorded. But I mean, personally, I wouldn't want us to take this any further at this point in time, because we know we are with that particular project, and that was the main scope of what we're looking at. But it will be noted now, actually, and we can always raise it at any point in the future. Good. So I would like to regard that one as also completed, if everybody's happy with that as well. Thank you. I think we can see actually across the three pieces of work that there was value in that process. It as painful as it was. Good. Let's move on to assignment 7. We're nearly there now. What is the DDC role in front of public transport provision? This was one of yours, actually.
Yeah.
Councillor Frenchman. This needs a 1-year review. Would you be happy to take that on board?
I don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that one? Is that because I
wrote the report.
Because you wrote the report.
I want someone else's opinion.
A fresh pair of eyes on it. Okay. So that either leaves. Well, there's only 2 of us tonight. Councillor Pritchard, do you look like you're full up because of the other piece of work?
It's engaging. Yeah.
Yeah. I will. Unless you want to take it. Do you want to take it?
Me?
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No, I'll.
It does pertain to me, but I can't. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I will take that one on Monday, actually, please. Yeah. Yeah, you'll give me the block of information. So on the new. Yeah, on the new form. Yeah, definitely.
I think. Sorry, Chair. I think it should be possibly. I would say policy. That's too strong, but I think the author shouldn't do the implementation. I just think it gives it a fresh set of eyes, and it might throw up other things that someone hasn't seen before.
Well, therein lies an interesting conundrum, you see, because if you play back on the conversation we had a moment ago, familiarity in some respect is helpful on this project, because what we're not looking for new angles. We're looking to say, okay, I understand what went into it, I understand the objective of deconstructing it. Has that been met? In fact, I'd probably say on this one, that's the best person to run the project. The problem you're going to have is actually when we have the churn in the projects and the person's no longer here.
Well, I'll do it then.
Well, if you're happy to do it, then.
Well, but I will. I just felt that it was better for someone else to put a spotlight on it, as it were.
Yeah, okay, Richard.
I agree with you. You've got the insight, the dedication, the passion, and you push behind it and the research. But you've got the overview.
I'll do it.
Okay, perfect. I'll volunteer.
I just feel my arm twisting from here. May I just ask Tony something then?
Yeah.
Who's the new officer is there?
Yes, new strategic economic development officer.
Who?
Claire Coward.
Coward?
Yeah. Claire Coward.
She's the strategic economic development officer. So would she be the best person to speak to about?
Go ahead.
We are core, aren't we? How many members
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Some of this work.
How many
She's
members
not
are there?
long out. She's the right person.
So she can find out.
We're just on the. Don't go. Otherwise we'll be in trouble. Yeah. We are poor. It's
75% now, isn't it?
Yeah, we're fine. We're only 2 down. Yeah.
Well,
You see, if anybody else leaves, I think they have a problem, don't we, Tony?
Do we need to co-opt anyone else? Is that possible? in terms of the workflow going forward? We're generating a lot of work.
Yes, we are. Yeah, we are. Well, no, this is the. In a way, I think this. Well, you can obviously call people into your team to help, so you still have to chair it. But I think this is quite a unique committee in many respects, because we do a lot of the work and we have to share it out and come back and bring it to us, which is why sometimes actually it feels like a lot of hard work. But I think what's causing us problems at the minute is all of these documentation problems. And I think once we won't have.
Once they've caught up.
Once it's basically catching up, really, that's the point. Because actually, by definition, actually what's kind of happening is the whole doing these actually slowed us down. So if you kind of, and obviously we can cancel French was issue, so this time next year, or in 2 years' time, we won't have that same issue again. We've kind of got to a different pace.
Thank you.
Plus also I think we've got some chunky issues on the table at the minute as well. But you're right, I just feel a lot on. I know we were putting, in fact this time unprecedented, Wendy and I had 2 meetings. Normally we have the 3 of us, but this time we had to have an extra meeting as well to get our head around the agenda. Okay, that's that, but good point, and Councillor French, when you got everything you need, and you answered that question, and Councillor Pritchard the question about thank you. Now, the next item on the agenda, number 9, is to provide an update on the training. Now, on this one, Wendy, you've organised some training for us at Rugby Borough Council. Yeah, that was earlier, wasn't it? Northampton Borough Council, I do know that.
I was just getting worried there.
No, it's alright, I had rugby on the brain. Northampton Borough Council. Now, Wendy's been managing this process. Is there anything else that you've got, you know what it is and all the rest?
There was an email came out, was it?
Yes.
Very recently with all the details.
Yes.
I presume the car park is in that underground car park.
Yes, yeah. And I don't know quite how she's going to allocate the spaces, but normally you have to forward your registration number. But whether that's still the case, I don't know.
Perhaps you could just ask, because it's out of hours, isn't it?
It is.
So I presume access, it's not very secure if you just drive in, is it?
I know there's a barrier you have to drive over, isn't it? Well,
I don't know.
it goes down.
Yeah, there's barriers in and out traffic light systems.
Do you know Jeffrey's room or wherever? Do we know where that is?
Yeah, you go through into the main entrance of the Guildhall, turn left and go upstairs, and you can't turn back on yourself. It's in the old part of the building,
right.
And they usually have tea and coffee outside of there.
I'll smell it.
and a buffet.
I'll definitely smell it.
Councillor French, you're going?
Yes. I think it's full through.
Yes, I'm going to have to send my apologies now, unfortunately. This is the second scrutiny. I'm going to be in Bangladesh. Of all places, so literally finished booking it today, so sorry about that.
You've got Councillor Wesley and Brown and yourself going.
Yeah, Councillor Pritchard and
I've looked at the date, it's an evening, the clash is Sunday, sorry, apologies.
I had a 2.5 week window, very rarely clear, and just got a few things in to roll across the clean before council actually. Okay, that's good. Well, that's thank you for organising that, Wendy. Much appreciated. It's a lower cost way, and you get a nice pool of people as well to come along. The next item on the agenda, number 10, we're coming to the home run now, is to agree a brief at a time.
I thought I misread that very willfully when I first read it, without the and in it.
A brief. Councillor Paul makes a very good contribution to our committee. Now, the interesting thing here is we, in the past, we've always basically said, look, talk to us about your portfolio, talk to us about the challenges, the kind of the whole kind of thing we analyse performance on. For this one, we thought it might be useful to have extra focus and also a time. Actually, I think that'd be very useful. I think in terms of my initial thoughts on this were the sort of time we had this evening was quite handy, sort of 45 minutes. Actually, we could even flip the agenda, so actually Councillor Paul went first, or at least after Julie Lewis. Actually, Julie Lewis won't be up next time, which turn? Performance, because is this the one where we miss it, or?
Yes, it would have been, the performance would have been through portfolio holders by...
Yeah, so we have this is the best meeting for councillor Balls to come to. So we can set them off at 6:15, pretty much, and
As long as he doesn't talk about the canal, we're all right.
well, you could actually restrict his scope and say don't talk about the canal. But what would you? I mean, or we could simply say, tell us, performance challenges. Give them an open palette, but say you have got 45 minutes.
Personally, I'd be interested to know about what we're doing to encourage higher paid employment.
Very good research question, if you like. So
better spec, not warehouse jobs.
Yeah, okay.
High skilled jobs. Yes.
Encourage higher skilled jobs. Employment.
Yeah. I know you'll talk about KHP, but there must be other things.
Yeah, and basically to give us examples and a strategy around it.
Yeah.
Councillor Pritchard, thank you.
Yeah, that sounds great. On the back of that, I wonder how that impacts on people in terms of ability to purchase housing in the district, in terms of salaries. Do you think that's in the scope, or...?
No, it's more strategic housing, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it should be, but I guess it's an interesting one, isn't it? We could pose, I want to recommend you do, given the high level scope in terms of the single topic, and then follow up with that question in terms of...
I suppose you could do it indirectly by saying those that are employed within the district, do they reside in the district? Do you have any data to suggest that they commute in terms of key workers? Do commute?
A lot of them
do. They?
I found out. I didn't
It'd be nice to know those figures.
It would be actually, yeah. So, can you reframe it as basically about encouraging higher skilled employment in the district? And managing? It's not. You couldn't say managing the consequences because basically, how do you analyse performance?
Well, I mean,
what are their consequences?
But if KHP goes ahead, I presume it is totally, is it? It's likely to go
I think we're
ahead.
still waiting for funding announcement.
But if that goes ahead, there's going to be an influx of 300, 400, 500 people overall.
I don't know the numbers.
A couple of hundred people with families, higher paid people. It's going to put tremendous pressure on the housing, isn't it?
So
within a relatively small area, or rural area, I should say. But that's not necessarily to ask Colin about, but I'm just saying that is
it's the consequences of higher...
Perhaps we have the strategic housing person to the next meeting, or the one after.
We could do well. Let's see what he comes out of, and then we can raise questions. We'll focus on that because I guess in terms of agreeability, having higher skilled employment opportunities is a good thing in terms of raising. Because actually, you could follow the argument and say, well, actually, that does have an impact on house price. So actually, what you'd like to do is encourage lower skilled employment opportunities. You wouldn't want that opportunity, would you? What most concerns me in terms of the skill level of employment is this kind of gig economy and low-skilled, low-pay warehouses where the work is potentially exploited, sports directors, etc.
Well, you look at all the warehouses around here in Durfton places, we've no idea what goes on really.
No,
those sorts of places. I mean, most of them are pretty.
I'm sure most
sensible employers, reputable employers.
But of course, you don't know in some of these what employment practices are. But I think that's the question framed anyway. Yeah. Councillor Pritchard, I thought.
Just that, if we said 30 minutes and you took 45, is that? Would you be? You know what I'm trying to say? If you take 45 and it goes to an hour.
Good point.
Half an hour is quite a substantial amount of time to talk.
Yeah, let's give them 30 minutes. Yeah, good idea. Let's give them 30 minutes. 6:15, 6:45, basically, and we'll build some contingency to that. Good, well done. Thank you. Right. 30 minutes. That's that. Excellent. And then we've got the next item on the agenda, which is to agree a portfolio holder to attend the 27th of June meeting. I always think at this time of year it can be tricky to plot this particular meeting. Not least because you may have different portfolio holders in terms of the individuals anyway. Or we could want to see what's stimulated, or we could simply say, in terms of the natural cycle, we might want a particular individual. Do either of you have any strong thinking suggestions on this particular?
Well, I noticed the government today has put out some things about building, hasn't it?
Renting and so on.
Well, about they're going to build on station car parks and things like
Station car parks are a really great idea, isn't it? Yeah, just what you
that. They did it to me at Wembley and I couldn't park there anymore. So I don't know where, and the part 2 of the local plan, when will that be out?
I don't know.
But that's part of that as well. So possibly, who's the strategic
Planning is
It's Alan, isn't it?
Well, doesn't it work flipping
no,
a bit?
it's
David
David James.
James.
David James, but Councillor Charlton will possibly come back to that role, depending on what happens, of course. But that's the point, in a way, it doesn't matter who it is, it's the role
It's
that
the
we're
role.
having. Yeah. Should we line up that? Well, and even that's difficult to line the person up. We could just take a view on it at the next meeting.
Yes, why not?
Should we do that? Yeah, all good. So, it's not, it's not about personalities, but it's kind of easier when you know who's in the role, isn't it? Even though it doesn't necessarily should be following. So we'll put that on the next meeting. Thank you. Right, so we don't have any urgent business. However, Councillor Frenchman and I spoke about frequency meetings earlier, and given your assignment, that might have been a helpful thing to have. I'm not sure what the best mechanism to explore that is, but I also have a meeting with the leader this week, so perhaps I'll raise it with the leader in terms of frequency. But I know the word dropped on the frequency, and obviously there's the implications of officers, etc.
I was told by the leader that it's entirely up to you.
Yeah, well, it's the sort of thing I'd like to at least discuss.
No, I'm not saying, but
Yeah.
I think the final
Yeah.
decision rests with the chair.
Yeah. Well, it's a strange part to have, but it's not a decision I would simply have on my own and just say I'm going to stop, because obviously as an officer,
You were privy to what we said. I'm just saying that with a long agenda, it seems silly to have long meetings every 3 months. Surely it'd be better to have slightly shorter, more regular.
longish meetings every 2 months.
Well, yeah, I mean, you will have views on that. I wasn't
Yeah.
particularly going to comment on that. Just to remind you of the history, which will enlighten you of the history of the current schedule. S&I used to meet more frequently, significantly more frequently. I think the 3 meetings maybe were dropped out of the...
It's to do with the finance review, wasn't it, I think?
Well, no, the issue in my recollection was to allow more time for work to be done outside the meetings. I think what was happening then was that people were coming to meetings were they were too close together to do work in between. I mean, that was the issue.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Tony. So on this example, let's take Councillor Pritchard. You've got a lot of work to do here, actually, with your project, and a lot of stakeholders to get through and so on. It's quite a complicated beast. In your case, having more meetings wouldn't necessarily have helped that situation, because that's one more thing you've got to concentrate rather than getting out in the field. Or would it have helped? I don't know.
Well, I suppose if it's just an acknowledgement that work's ongoing, it's not discussed, then it would impact on that meeting and allow other work to be done, to be knocked off. But if this is historical and we're going through implementation reviews that have post, considerable amount of time, then it depends what the agenda's going to look like in a year's time, isn't it?
Yeah.
It might be quite...
It's a good point, actually. I mean, this is the biggest agenda in terms of the assignments. That's why we've started numbering everything as well.
I think, Chairman, it's fair to say that this is the biggest gap between meetings from November to February.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. It's a 3 months gap. We've got a big agenda, and a lot can get mixed up and stuff. I found this definitely the hardest agenda to put together, actually, since I've started being chair.
I believe there were the post-implementation reviews were carried forward from the last meeting.
Yeah, because we rolled some. Yes,
We ran out of time.
We ran out of time, yeah, basically. So we had that double whammy, actually. So we've got a bit of a concertina effect. In that case, then, perhaps we'll keep that back in mind, but we'll let's see how it moves on. Take it from there. Okay, good.
I think if I can suggest, Chairman, when we next meet to look at the agenda, perhaps we can have a discussion. We can look at the schedule.
Yeah, we'll do that. I think we've got two, because it is a small team. We've got a lot on our plates, actually, basically. Yeah. I think the other thing is, I don't think if we're to do it properly and do our jobs as people would expect us to, then I think we do need to give time to consider these things and have proper conversations. And it's not always easy, and we are all working as well. Good. In that case, then, I think before we get to the witching hour, that's the end of the agenda. The next meeting. Oh, sorry, there was one thing actually in urgent business I wanted to do, and that is, although on the June meeting, I will probably be absent on that evening, and the vice chairperson will need to chair it. That is currently Councillor Frenchman. I don't know if it'll be Councillor Frenchman or who, because obviously it's that time of year, nobody knows if we're back at the next meeting or not. But and that's the trick of this time of year, isn't it? So in April, it's obviously our last meeting in the cycle. They obviously may change, so we'll see. At least there's no elections this year anyway. That normally creates some more problems. So
county council elections.
County council's election.
Yeah, so sorry, the district level, that doesn't affect us, does it? This one point in the year. So the vice chair will take that meeting. I am at speaking at a conference in London, which can't all see. Good. That's it then. Thank you very much, everybody, for your